going to call this meeting of the Concord City Council to order. I would just like to remind folks that devices are available to help those who have difficulty hearing. These devices use a transmitter and headphones and allow for an individual to personally adjust the volume to their needs. A device can be obtained at the Concord TV booth, which is that filing cabinet looking structure in the back of the room. So if you need to augment your hearing ability, please touch base with the Concord TV personnel back there. Right. Would you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councilor Brown.
Here.
Mayor Champlin.
Present.
Councilor Fennessy. Councilor Foote. Councilor Grady Sexton.
Here.
Councilor Horn.
Excused.
Councilor Keach. Here. Councilor Kretovic.
Here.
Councilor Kurtz.
Excused.
Councilor McLaughlin. Here. Councilor McNamara.
Here.
Councilor Schlosser.
Here.
Councilor Schultz.
Excused.
Councilor Sekou. Councilor Todd.
Here. Thank you very much. I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of our March 11, 2024 meeting.
So moved.
Second. Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Your Honor.
Councilor Brown.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have one correction. It's on page 21. I believe it should read solar eclipse glasses in lieu of classes.
So noted. Any other comments or corrections? All right. All those in favor of adopting the minutes as presented and edited, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it. The motion passes. Thank you very much. We now have a presentation by the Concord Public Library Foundation. I'd like to invite you to come on up.
Thank you so much for this opportunity to speak with all of you on behalf of the Concord Public Library Foundation. My name is Kate Ransmeyer. This is Carrie Allen. We're two of the 13 volunteers who currently serve on the foundation's board. And in case you're not familiar with it, the Concord Public Library Foundation is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. It has roots going back to the 1960s, but it now currently operates as a separate entity from the library's board of trustees. We have a very diverse board of people of all ages, all life experiences, but we are all very committed to the foundation's mission, which is to advance the Concord Public Library through promotions, through advocacy, and through fundraising.
So, considering that the foundation board has several new members and there are several elected city councilors, we thought this would be a great opportunity to kind of match faces with names and share a little bit about the foundation, how it supports the library, and how the foundation can support the city of Concord as it moves forward in the next few years to hopefully expand and renovate the existing library building.
Yeah, so there's two big things at the collective front of the board's mind right now. One is Concord Reads, which thank you so much, Mayor Champlin, for the shout out at the last meeting and letting people know that copies of Unlikely Animals are circulating from the library. This is a citywide literary event. We want as many people as possible to be checking books out, joining us starting at the end of April for events to use the library in a number of ways. These programs will get people involved with lots of different local and regional organizations to think about the same book. The other big thing that's been on the board's mind for 20 plus years is this possibility of keeping things moving with the fact that the Concord Public Library is on the city's city's capital slated to begin next year. And as I mentioned, the board has been involved for a couple decades now with keeping things moving. We're developing assessments, we're paying for all kinds of studies, and we are completely committed to continuing that. We want people to know that the Public Library Foundation exists to work with city leadership, but also with the public to make sure that things are moving ahead as planned. So I guess, what we really want people to understand is our biggest concern in terms of the facilities, the programs, all the wonderful things that the library does is the building itself. Some of you might be aware that it was built in 1940, and buildings from 1940 had different ideas in mind about how the public would use the space, particularly the library. The library has really changed in the way it's used in the 21st century. And our current physical space has been pushed beyond its capacity to serve our city. It's a hub for our city. Many, many people use our library in ways that people in 1940 could not have possibly imagined. And it's important to us to make sure that we end up with a building that meets the needs of the people who are coming to use that. And Carrie and I just want to kind of highlight some of the issues that this renovation and expansion can solve.
One of the things is access is a major problem in the 83-year-old building. For example, the ADA chair that leads down into the programming space, the largest space, library auditorium, has been closed for a few months now, awaiting a short-term fix, which means that people can't get there if they, need to use the elevator. Library staff have turned the lower lounge into a smaller programmable space for the time being, but even after that is fixed, there will be a need to rebuild the lift as is the post-site entryway into the room. And so a modern library would also have programmable space on the entry-level floor. And I imagine also a children's room on the entry-level floor. I don't know if you've tried to get a stroller up the library stairs before. It's hard. Yeah.
And so something that I know as a relatively new homeowner of an old building, you can appreciate is that even though there's a new roof that was recently installed a few years ago, water still makes its way into the building in various ways. We were notified about a breach that was pretty serious a few months ago where a pipe burst and it flooded part of the children's library, and water reached IT hardware, and it was a very close call in terms of things being fried. So protecting those kinds of collections are important, but there's also this really great potential with creating a city repository that's at prescribed archival standards. Concord doesn't have a large city repository for our history, for all these documents that cover many departments. And this renovation could have a space that not only protects them for many years, but also makes it possible for people to access them, to understand them.
And we just think it's important for new council members and the public to know that the city of Concord does have a timeline that for making this happen, the necessary renovations to give the community the library that they need and that's fit for the 21st century. The capital improvement plan provides funding for the purchase of a land on Prince Street for next year, and then construction is estimated to begin in 2028 according to the CIP.
We are certainly aware that the library is the city's only priority. There's so many things going on right now, but us on the Concord Public Library Foundation, it is our only priority, and we really care about it. And we are very happy to be those voices out there to advocate for the library, for what the staff needs, for what visitors need. We have done a lot of work as a foundation over the years with fundraising, with making improvements, with really listening to library staff, trying to hear what do they need in order to meet what the public is telling them they want from a library. And we are duty-bound to those people who use the library and who give money to the Concord Public Library Foundation to do whatever we can to create this exceptional space that's accessible to all. It's really, libraries are pretty fantastic in the fact that you can show up, no questions asked, you're there, you have the opportunity to use materials, to use the space. It's without the expectation to put down your money right out of your pocket. It's a really rare experience these days where you feel a lot of pressure wherever you go to buy something in order to be able to sit
And so the foundation does several things to help support the library. One of the things that we do, we have a program called Books for Babies, where a new book is given to every child that's born at Concord Hospital. So they start off, it's one of their first gifts, right? Is this idea of words and story and literacy, and that's something that we fund with our programming. And then we have our Yates Award, which highlights a member of the community who has supported literacy in children, and then that winner gets to pick new titles for the children's room. We have the Concord Reads program, which Kate so eloquently talked about earlier, but we only do this work, and we can only do this work with the guidance and support from the library staff, and really seeing what they want, what they need, and what they want us to help them accomplish. Libraries are vital to communities. They provide access to books, support literacy initiatives, and allow for cultural engagement. Libraries evolve, and they have evolved so fast over the past couple decades. And the Concord Public Library is no exception. The library staff truly does amazing work. But to continue evolving and meeting community needs, an updated space is necessary. I'm a teacher. I'm also a children's author. So I know how important libraries are. Book access is something that all kids need and many do not have. And libraries can help provide that access to kids that really need it. Kids read for reading's sake. It impacts their test scores, their engagement in school, and future success. And in fact, reading is one of the few things that researchers have found really actually do impact success in children. And when kids have a place that they can access books and resources, a place where they can connect to their own stories, but also learn about others, it's a powerful thing indeed.
So we do have a handout for you. You're a little low tech today, but we hope that you're going to spend some time with this. This document sort of details some of the work that has already been done. We've got a couple of different timelines on here and some facts and figures about the library, its use, sort of where the foundation has fit into the timeline of this first, what was a discussion about the need for a 21st century library, which stretches back almost 15 years. But also, where we are looking to go forward. So it's really about what's been done, but also what's at stake for us as the capital city if we don't have a modern library. So keeping in mind, I'll hand these to you and pass these around. And we're really excited to invite you as well. If you have time, which is not in great supply, I know, for city councilors, but we meet every month, most months of the year on Tuesdays upstairs in the library. And we love having visitors come and hear what we're doing, and we'd be very happy to talk with you further about the projects that we have coming up, but how we can work with you to make sure that things stay on track. Thanks so much. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Excellent, thank you. And I would just mention that unfortunately, your microphones are not working, which is why my voice is booming and yours is not. Our tech folks at Concord TV are working on it, who maintain this. So I'm just going to tell the folks at home, sorry about the bad sound. And I've already received one text about it as well. But I'm happy to open this up for questions from the council. I would just remind councilors who might be on the foundation board, or might be employed by the foundation, that they should recuse themselves from the questioning. But are there any questions for the foundation? Yeah, I said that councilors who might sit on the foundation board or might be employees of the foundation should recuse themselves from the discussion. Yes, as a conflict of interest. Any questions for the foundation board? Well, thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Oh, thanks again for the time.
Thank you.
I'm very intimidated by the sound of my voice in the microphone.
I would have used my teacher voice had I known.
I know. Well, I didn't find out till halfway through. I apologize.
Do we leave with this with any
I think that the city clerk has a copy, so thank you. Thank you. Is Ski the Beeve here? Yes, Susan. Come on up and please identify yourself.
Hi, I'm Susan Woods, and I'm the cashiers of the vice chair. I feel like I'm a kid at the.
You know, if it helps any, I felt the same way when I was sitting in that.
So is this working now?
I think it may not be, so if you would project, we'll be able to hear you, but the people at home may not be able to.
Well, honorable members of the City Council, thank you for allowing us the time for this presentation. I'm sorry that Sam Evans Brown, who was supposed to make this presentation, is somewhere stuck in traffic with the eclipse traffic, and so you've got the understudy who hasn't done much studying. So here we are, and we're here to make sure that the members of the City Council are aware of the potential that Beaver Meadow has as a cross-country ski facility, as well to give you an idea of what we've been up to and what we hope to achieve. We'd like to present a vision for how to improve Beaver Meadow as a four-season recreation facility and to get feedback from the City Council. And we ask that the City Council help provide direction to city staff as to how best to work with us to make progress in realizing this vision. Do you all have the presentation?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. So I'm on slide 2, which is titled, What Have We Done So Far? This is a short summary of how we got to where we are. We founded Ski the Beeve after watching it become more and more rare to have consistently high-quality skiing here locally for our high school, middle school, as well as the PKL programs. At first, this was as much about the inability for us to groom the snow as with our current weather cycles, it frequently turns to ice. And so we raised about $60,000 to help the city purchase a new groomer that has the capability to chop up the hard, icy snow and make it skiable. Following the success of this, we created a 501c3, and our intention is to use this nonprofit as a Friends of Beaver Meadow type organization, and in order to help the city raise private and philanthropic funds to invest in making this a publicly available winter recreation facility. So this brings us to where we are now. We're in 2024, where we really need to work hand in glove with the City Council and city staff to finish scoping out this project. Simply put, from here on out, we need to start making some decisions, and we can't do that without having a sense of the community and as you as a representative what it hopes to see in this facility. So there's 3 things you need to make snow. You need water, you need power, and you need capital. And if we are to continue to use Beaver Meadow as a winter facility, apart from golf simulators, there's going to have to be some snowmaking. And for there to be snowmaking, we need these three things. In addition, we need one other thing, which is some cold weather. Although the climate models, or climate has gotten more mild here in our winters, most models show that there'll be decades of cold enough temperatures to make snowmaking in here in Concord. So the good news is we have all 3 elements. We have water, we have power, and we have the ability to raise capital. When it comes to water, we have 3 sources. We have the Merrimack River, we have city water from a hydrant, and we have water from the golf course's irrigation pond. You may not be aware, but there is a very large irrigation pond down towards the river that is pumped. The water from that is pumped into the river every winter before the freezing temperatures. So what we'd like to do is be able to harness that, not put the water back in the river, and actually use that for snowmaking. City water is pretty expensive and it's also fairly warm, so it's not a great option for us. Merrimack River would be viable, although you have to deal with Unitil and New Hampshire Fish and Game, so that's a long game. But the irrigation pond, which does present some challenges, is likely the easiest to solve. If we could modify the pond so it doesn't need to be drained before the winter, doing something that they call a settlement pond or basin, so you keep the sediment from clogging up the irrigation intakes. And we may need to enlarge the pond. The estimates we have of the size of it are sort of widely ranging, so we need to get a better handle on that. It may be large enough already. And depending on the snowmaking setup we use, we may need to modify the pump house that's there. Maybe a higher pressure pump, or also reroute some of the pipes, mostly to deal with the colder temperatures. The next one is the power source. Snow guns run on electricity, which is one of the reasons why snowmaking is pretty easy to decarbonize. But Beaver Meadow has 3-phase power, which is quite unusual. facilities that try to do this, and is entering from both sides of the beaver bed. So provided we can work with the golf course to find an acceptable way to burn the conduit, we believe there's adequate power here to generate snow. On the next slide, which is 7, if you're still able to follow along, is just an example of the type of fan guns that are available now for making snow. This is actually a wheeled contraption that has its own generator and can be moved around on the golf course. There are other alternatives, which are putting up guns individually with generating power. There's a bunch of ways this can be done. The advances in the equipment and is phenomenal in the last few years. So when we put this all together, we developed what we call a straw proposal for what snowmaking might look like. We know that burying pipe to carry the water would be a pretty tough sell with the golf course. So our thought was to use plastic pipes that we could install in the fall and take down in the golf season and be stored. Once we modify the irrigation pond so it would be left full in the fall, we could use bubblers so that the pond doesn't freeze and pull water from that with what they call a trash pump, which floats in the pond. And then we could either purchase a generator or snow guns that have integrated generators, or install free-base power in the roughs along the edge of the golf course. And that would allow us to make snow with 1 or 2 fan guns along the course. So that brings us to the last thing we need, and that's capital. The setup we've described probably costs somewhere in the neighborhood of $300,000. We do need to do a bunch more work to close in on more precise costs, but that also requires us to scope out the project and answer some of these questions of what is acceptable to the golf course and what capabilities we already have. And so this is really our message. If we believe that this vision is worth pursuing, Ski the Beeve is committed to fundraising to make this happen. We believe there is substantial interest in the ski community in such a facility like this one, and we look forward to showing the city that this is the case. But we can't start our fundraising until we have, one, the buy-in from the city, and secondly, that we've really scoped out what the costs are, because once you get down that path, you can't come back and say, oops, we didn't know about this, we didn't know about that. Because we would be applying, there's a significant grant fund available, but in our experience, those have to really have the ducks in the road for that. The second last slide is on the snowmaking demonstration, but that probably is our next step in the fall. We'd like to show the community what this would look like, what it would sound like, and we have noticed the community around Beaver Meadow that we wish to do a demonstration. We thought we might be able to do it this winter, but it was difficult with the weather, and the skiers that have snowmaking guns weren't able to loan them to us when the weather lined up and the weather was cold. They didn't have the snow guns. So our plan is to kick this off as soon as we get cold temperatures in the beginning of next winter. So in summary, this is what we think we need to move this project forward. We need active collaboration with city staff to develop a proposed detailed project plan so that we can then bring this to the ski community to support with their dollars. So what we need is we want to do the snowmaking demonstration as soon as we can this winter. We need to scope out what a low-cost snowmaking system would be that could cover about a 1.6-kilometer loop, and that would involve scoping out this irrigation pond and pump house. And then we also could use some help with city council, city staff to develop the budget and operating expenses that would be used to run this. There are opportunities to raise capital to sell seasons passes for skiing. We have modeled what other ski areas do. The high schools and other teams pay significant dollars to travel to Proctor, Dublin School, or Gunstock to ski on courses that have snowmaking. There's no reason that could be done right here in Concord. Do you have any questions?
Does anyone have a question for Ski the Beeve? Councilor Frederick.
I don't have a question, but I do want to thank you for bringing up the possibility for revenue to be generated through season pass holders, because as a special revenue fund, that's how the golf course operates. And I know it was a conversation that took place with the Golf Course Advisory Board, so it's an appreciation for your presentation, whether you did your homework or not in advance. Thanks for your efforts.
Councilor Keach.
Thank you, Your Honor. I apologize, as the understudy, you might not be able to answer this. I understand if that's the case, but do you know if the irrigation pond has the capacity to sustain both snow-making operations and irrigation during the golf season?
Well, the irrigation pond refills in certain the spring rains. So it's, my understanding is it's full in the fall when they pump it out. Then doesn't fill as much during the winter season, although it does come back up. It stays below the pump, which is what we're protecting. And then in the spring with the rains, it fills up, continues to fill up during the summer. So that, I believe so. We need to investigate that, but I don't think we would be stealing water that then not be available for irrigation.
Thank you.
Other questions? I have one. Is there, I know that the simple answer is when it's cold enough, but any specific for your test of the snowmaking equipment, any particular time of day or day of the week that you're planning on doing this, or that you think would be optimal? I'm thinking in particular about the fact that the Beaver Meadow Golf Course is surrounded by residential neighborhoods, and obviously I'm sure that there would be concern about what the noise of the snowmakers would be.
Right. So our hope would be to do it in the evening, because that's when the temperatures typically get colder. But we would not expect to do this, through the night. But generally the evening is the best times for doing the snow. The guns are much more flexible. You can make snow in much colder in warmer temperatures than you used to. But you're far more efficient. The colder it is, the more efficient. So talking about it at peak, they crank them up at the end of the day, and they're running really early.
Thank you. Councilor Fennis.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your presentation. Thank you to your group. I know you've come before both Parks and Rec and the advisory committee a number of times. One question I had for you, because I know it's been raised a couple times, is with respect to the snowmaking, where do you anticipate that would actually be on the golf course, at least initially?
This would be, I'm not very good with fairways, but essentially take from the driving range down the hill towards the river, and there's these are existing trails that are already used, and then back up. So sort of straight out the driving range would be on existing trail system. And there's woods lining that, so that piping would be sort of tucked in the edge of the woods. So again, the plan is the piping would be pulled out in the spring and stored. But that's something we do need to work with the golf course to make sure, we have a proposal, but we need to be sure that that's acceptable to all the parties before we go forward with costing.
Well, thank you again for your presentation.
Thank you for your support.
Yeah. That moves us to our consent calendar. I'll just note that Councilor Brown has removed items 18 and 21 from the consent calendar. Do I have a motion to, Councilor Brown?
Yes, I would like to recuse myself from item number 20 on the consent agenda.
Councilor Brown recuses herself from item number 20. Thank you.
No, move approval. Second.
Approval is moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it. The motion is adopted. That moves us to public hearings. Madam Clerk, item 27A.
It's a resolution modifying the elderly exemption for the city of Concord pursuant to the provisions.
May I stop you?
Yes.
I apologize.
That's all right.
I apologize. If no one has any objections, I will hold the public hearing, combine the public hearings on items 27A, 27B, 27C, and 27D, all of which have to do with exemptions or credits for the property tax as one hearing. Is that acceptable to the body?
Yes, sir.
Excellent, thank you. Madam City Clerk.
The first one is a resolution modifying the elderly exemption for the city of Concord pursuant to the provisions of RSA 7227A. The second one is a resolution modifying the optional veterans tax credit for the city of Concord pursuant to the provisions of RSA 7227-A. The third one is a resolution modifying the all veterans tax credit for the city of Concord pursuant to the provisions of RSA 7228-A. And the fourth one is a resolution modifying the blind exemption for the city of Concord pursuant to the provisions of RSA 7227-A.
Thank you very much. Mr. City Manager.
Madam Members of the Council, so I will touch on all of those at once.
Yep.
Okay. So the committee regarding the elderly piece on January 31st, 2024, a recommendation was submitted to City Council to increase the income levels from $39,000 to $42,000 for single applicants and from $55,300 to $60,000 for married applicants, and to increase the asset limit from $100,000 to $150,000 for both single and married applicants. No other changes were recommended. For the blind, presently the exemption amount for the blind is $120,234. The recommendation was submitted to the council to increase the exemption amount from that amount to $125,000. For the solar energy systems, there's no recommended change. For the veteran tax credit and all veterans tax credit, the tax credit is recommended to go from $200 to $300. For the totally and permanently disabled tax credit, it was adopted. Tax credit is $2,000. No change is recommended. And for the widow or veteran killed during active duty, the amount is $2,000 for the tax credit, and no change is recommended. Glad to answer your questions.
Thank you. Any questions for the City Manager? Hearing none, seeing none, I will open the public hearing. Would anyone like to testify on any of these four items? Welcome.
Thank you.
Please identify yourself.
My name is Andrew Lane. I'm a resident at 6 Clover Court here in Concord. I'm here tonight representing the Veterans of Foreign Wars, Post 1631 here in Concord. We're here to express our support for the resolutions before you tonight. We increase that tax relief for veterans from $200 to $300. But we would further support, and we do encourage, any amendments that would increase that amount so that the veterans in Concord may come closer to be in line with the other communities here in the state of New Hampshire. So we're at top. I think we should lead the state where we are leaders of veterans. With that,
Sir.
Thank you. Mr. Lane, any questions for Mr. Lane? Very good. Thank you very much, sir. Anyone else interested in testifying on any of these items? Seeing none, I'll declare the hearing on items 27A, B, C, and D closed. Now open the public hearing on item 27E. Madam Clerk.
It's a resolution appropriating the sum of $35,000 in the Solid Waste Fund to modify the entrance to the transfer station located on Old Turnpike Road and authorizing the use of $35,000 in the Solid Waste Fund balance for this purpose.
Thank you very much, Mr. City Manager.
Your Honor, members of the council, in May of 2023, the New Hampshire Department of Environmental inspection on the city transfer station off Old Turnpike Road. Subsequent to that, representatives from our contractor and the General Services Department met with officials from Environmental Services and advised the city plan to correct the traffic backing out of the Old Turnpike Road. The expense for this modification is not included in the 2024 budget, and consequently a supplemental appropriation is requested to accomplish this work. So we're ready to go with the work, and the area to be used will be the snow storage area during the off-season. So that's what the appropriations purpose is.
Thank you. Any questions for the city manager? Council Fennessy.
Thank you. Just a quick question. Do you have any concerns about this impacting sort of a backup in the winter months if we're sort of utilizing our
We can work around that. I mean, again, this will be, it's not all the time, but there's generally less activity also in the winter too. So.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the city council? Very well. I'll open the hearing on item 27E. Would anyone like to testify on this item? All right, seeing none, I'll close the public hearing on item 27E and move to open the public hearing on item 27F. Madam Clerk.
It's a resolution accepting the sum of $9,660.75 in residential granite curb cost sharing and reimbursement from developers and appropriating the sum of $9,660.75 in the annual roadway surface improvements project CIP number 78 for this purpose.
Thank you. Mr. City Manager.
Members of the council, that pretty much wraps it up. They covered it well, what the purpose of the dollars are for.
Super. Are there any questions for the city manager? Seeing none, I'll open the public hearing on item 27F. Would anyone in the audience like to testify on this? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing on item 27F, and I will open the public hearing on item 27G. City Clerk.
It's a resolution amending and restating resolution number 9573, which determined that the proposed project has a public benefit and approved an application by First Church Holdings, LLC, for a 7-year RSA 79-E Community Revitalization Tax Relief Incentive for the renovation of real estate located at 177 North Main Street, City Assessors Parcel Map 55, Block 3, Lot 14 and 16.
Thank you very much. Mr. City Manager.
Your Honor, members of the council, First Church Holdings LLC has requested the city council amend the substantial completion date set forth in resolution 9573 from March 31st, 2025 to March 31st, 2026. This will give the developer sufficient time to complete the project, which will projected to take up to 14 months to complete. Be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for the city manager? Seeing none, is there anyone in the audience who would like to testify on this item? Right. Any questions for Mr. Chorlian? Council Fennessy, please take a seat.
Thank you. I just had a question. How much did the litigation delay your progress on the project?
Assuming that we start in the next couple of months, it'll be about a net 10 months.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Chorlian? All right, thank you, Mr. Chorlian.
And the only comment I would make is, I mean, it's an interesting path, well reported, but I think the outcome is good for the project. It's good for our neighborhood as long as the site is good for the city. I think that's grateful for that.
Could I just say thank you for continuing to invest in the city of Concord?
My pleasure.
Sure.
Would anyone else like to testify on this item? All right, seeing none, I'll close the public hearing on item 27G and open the public hearing on item 27H. Madam City Clerk.
It's an ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances, Title V, Administrative Code, Chapter 35, Classification and Compensation Plan, Schedule D of Article 35-2, Class Specification Index, Reorganization of the General Services Administration Division.
Mr. City, thank you very much. Mr. City Manager.
Members of the council, pending the retirement of a long-term General Services Department employee, to provide us with the opportunity for realignment of the Administration Division, which serves as a support division for the operating divisions across the department. The replacement will result in the Assistant Administrative Division Manager position in Labor Grade 21 being replaced by an office manager, labor grade 17, and 2 fiscal technician 3 positions, labor grade 12, being replaced by 2 administrative support specialists, labor grade 14. The General Service Department believes this realignment will result in improvements in the organization, but that better reflect the structure will serve the city well. Further, this realignment will result in net increases in employees within the department, and in fact represents a modest savings from the general fund, the water fund, the wastewater fund, and the solid waste fund. Does that answer your questions?
Thank you. Any questions for the city manager? All right. Seeing none, would anyone in the audience like to testify on this item? All right. I'll close the public hearing on item 27H and, bless you, and open the public hearing on item 27I. Madam City Clerk.
It's a resolution appropriating the sum of $66,190 for city overtime payments to cover shifts when earned leave is used, and using fund balance in the amount of $66,190 for this purpose.
Thank you. Mr. City Manager.
Members of council, I'd ask the HR director to come forward. You all know Jen Johnson. Always smiling.
And I'm really good at projecting my voice, so you're in luck. I'm Jen Johnston, the HR director, and I come tonight before you with the request from the city's retention and recruitment committee. We have been meeting for about a year collaboratively. We have people all across the city on this committee, both union and non-union, working together to come up with some solutions to solve our retention and recruitment challenges that have come forward after COVID. Right now, the city's running at about a 17% turnover rate, which is high for the public sector, and that's been around what we've been seeing since COVID. And so the committee's been meeting, and we came up with this proposal that you see before you to try to mitigate some of our retention issues. The proposal is to award some earned leave to our employees, and it's banded based on the length of service. The cost for the proposal is because in fire and police, when a person takes time off with the earned leave, we have to backfill their position and pay overtime for that. So that's the cost before you for the proposal, but the overall proposal is to give earned leave to our employees, some in the 1 year to 5 year range, so they've completed probation, but they're under 5 years. That's a proposal for 16 hours. And then 5 to 10 is 24 hours, and over 10 years is 32 hours. These hours would be awarded if you approved it May 1st. They'd have to be used by the end of the year, so they don't roll over. They're not paid out as cash, simply to take more time off. And that proposal comes along with some other suggestions. We called it the perks package. You see that at the end of the report. That's to allow our employees to get a family pass for the pools during the summer. Right now, unless you're a resident of Concord, you don't have access to the pools. We do have all of our employees have access to that. And the other proposal in the perks package is also for our employees to have access to the library. So right now, when residents have access to the library, we'd like our employees to be extended that access as well. And then the last part of the perks package is to allow employees to get the guest member rate at Beaver Meadow if they were interested in golfing. So those are the 3 pieces that aren't really costed out because they're not necessarily a dollar item, but we wanted you to be aware of those. So that's what we're asking you to vote on tonight, and I'm happy to answer any questions. I know I went through that very quickly.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Johnston? I can't believe this council has no questions. I will ask you a question.
It was a comprehensive
It was a
report.
comprehensive report. It was actually very good reading, and I would recommend to members of the public to go to the city website, to the agenda for tonight's meeting, and take a look at it. What percentage of our city employees, if you know this off the top of your head, are not residents of the city?
I do know that. I looked that up, and only 26% of our employees live in Concord.
Okay. All right. So so the perks package would be quite an incentive. Could you just touch on some of the challenges that we face competing with other municipalities for employees at all levels?
Yes, I can touch on here. So I would say that, again, it's perception-based, not necessarily reality-based. In fact, we had someone leave to go to the state police and they came back within 3 months. So we have seen some of that as well. I could probably talk about this for hours, so I don't mind.
Yeah, I know you could. I just wanted to get a sense of what the larger issues are that this is attempting to address. And, I also want to ask, would you believe that I'm impressed that these are employee-driven suggestions?
I would.
All right, thank you. Thanks very much. That closes the public hearing portion of tonight. I'm sorry, that does close the public hearing portion of tonight's meeting. We'll now move to public hearing action. We'll take up item, watch out for the peanut gallery. We'll take up item number 28. Madam Clerk.
It's a resolution modifying the elderly exemption for the City of Concord pursuant to the provisions of RSA 7227-A.
Move approval.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. Councilor Todd.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just want to thank the Tax Exemption Policy Committee for their hard work on making these recommendations. I think they're very sound. I also would just like to add that as we heard testimony tonight, I've also heard from residents in Concord, Panico Chorus especially, who are especially interested in seeing a rise in the All Veterans Tax Credit, which I know we have brought up, but they have also pointed out to me that Concord as a municipality is on the lower end of that rate, and so I would like to hopefully see that we can in future years continue to focus on that, and the Tax Exemption Policy Committee can come up with further recommendations to bring us up on level with some of the other municipalities in New Hampshire. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Fennessy.
Thank you. To follow up on Councilor Todd's question, I know we had some testimony about it tonight as well. That was certainly a subject of conversation during the meeting of the committee. And I think ideally over a period of years, we will be moving, hopefully, to step it up so that we are on the probably where we should be, where we should have been, because as you mentioned, we are on the lower side of the All Veterans Tax Credit, and it's something that we want to change.
Councilor Kretovic.
Thanks, Your Honor. Not to delay, this particular one is the elderly exemption, and I would completely encourage any resident in the city of Concord to look up what the parameters are for the elderly exemption. We hear often from people that are on a fixed income that the rising property taxes become a challenge. If you are eligible for this elderly exemption, we want you to be taking advantage of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other discussion? Very well. I will put it to the vote. All those in favor of the motion as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it. The motion passes. City Clerk, item 29.
It's a resolution modifying the optional veterans tax credit for the City of Concord pursuant to the provisions of RSA 7227-A.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Councilor Brown.
Your Honor, I will be recusing myself from this item and the next, item number 30, because I am a veteran.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Kretovic?
I will take Councilor Brent's comments and ditto.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All right, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favor of the motion as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it. The resolution is adopted. Madam City Clerk, item 30.
It's a resolution modifying the all veterans tax credit for the City of Concord pursuant to the provisions of RSA 7228-A.
Thank you.
Approval.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? I assume that some of the previous comments apply to this as well. All right. All those I'll put it to a vote. All those in favor of the motion as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it. Resolution is adopted. Madam City Clerk. All those in favor?
to modify the entrance to the transfer station located on Old Turnpike Road and authorizing the use of $35,000 in the solid waste fund balance for this purpose.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Move approval.
Oh, I'm sorry, thank you. I was distracted by the feedback. Moved and seconded, thank you. Now any discussion? All right, I'll put the item to the vote. All those in favor of the motion as proposed, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it. The motion passes by the required two-thirds majority. Madam City Clerk, item 33.
It's a resolution accepting the sum of $9,660.75 in residential granite curb cost sharing and reimbursement from developers and appropriating the sum of $9,660.75 in the annual roadway surface improvements project CIP number 78 for this purpose.
Move approval.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All right. I'll put it to a vote. All those in favor of the motion as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes with the required two-thirds majority. Madam City Clerk, item number 34.
It's a resolution amending and restating resolution number 9573, which determined that the proposed project has a public benefit and approved an application by First Church Holdings LLC for a 7-year RSA 79-E community revitalization tax relief incentive for the renovation of real estate located at 177 North Main Street, City Assessors, Parcel Map 55, Block 3, Lot 14 and 16.
Move approval. Second.
Moved by
Councilor McNamara.
Thank you, Councilor McNamara, seconded by Councilor Grodevic.
Your Honor, I want to excuse myself on this item.
Thank you, Councilor Sekou. Councilor Sekou recuses himself on this item. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor of the motion as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The resolution is adopted. Madam City Clerk, item 35.
It's an ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances, Title V, Administrative Code, Chapter 35, Classification and Compensation Plan, Schedule D of Article 35-2, Class Specification Index, Reorganization of the General Services Administration Division.
Move approval.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All right, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favor of the motion as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it. The resolution is adopted. Madam City Clerk, item 36.
It's a resolution appropriating the sum of $66,190 for city overtime payments to cover shifts when earned leave is used and using fund balance in the amount of $66,190 for this purpose.
Move approval.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Councilor Grodevic, then Councilor Brown.
Thank you, Your Honor. I guess what I want to express to the taxpayers is how extraordinarily rare it is that we would open up our collective bargaining agreements in the middle of the agreement to make a change to what's in those agreements. When Ms. Johnson was up here and she was talking to you about our retention of our city employees, and this is across the board, she's talking about challenges of all employers that are happening throughout New England, throughout the US, throughout North America. When she tells you there's been a shift after COVID, it can't be expressed more significantly than the number of available jobs that we have in our community right now, where we are having to look beyond where we would normally look to have employees fill those roles. It's a real challenge. So I'm glad to support this effort. I think it's really important for our city residents to understand delivery of services matter, in particular with our public safety. And this is exactly the type of effort we need to be taking in place in order to retain the employees that we have today and continue to provide the services to our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Brown.
Yes, I'm recusing myself from this as my husband is a police officer here.
Thank you, Councilor Brown. Any other comments? Let me say that, as I mentioned at the end of Ms. Johnston's testimony, I'm very impressed that this is very much an employee-driven, these are employee-driven proposals. You know, my compliments to the city administration for and for the staff, but for organizing the committee and for the city employees for rolling up their sleeves, coming up with positive suggestions, presenting them through the administration to the city council. I can think of no better way to say to our employees that we value you, we value your commitment to the city, we value the services that you provide every day. We talked earlier, Mrs. Johnson talked about the CDL drivers. They're the people who have a commercial driver's license, who are out there in the plows, plowing the roads in the middle of the night to make sure that in the morning you can get to work even if you don't want to, and to make sure that our kids can walk on the sidewalks to get to school. So I think this is a terrific suggestion, and I hope that the council fully supports it. I'll now put it to the vote. All those in favor of the resolution or the motion as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The motion passes with the required 2/3 majority. Thank you very much. We now have a report on 4 Bruton Street. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
1, 2, 3.
At least in the beginning.
That works.
Working now? Yep.
Great. Right here, Your Honor. Good
Walsh.
evening. Good evening, Your Honor, members of the council. I'm Matt Walsh. I'm the Deputy City Manager for Development. I'm joined by Chief Brett Osgood with the Police Department. We are here to provide a report as a follow-up to the staff report that you have in your packet regarding the results of due diligence for 4 Bruton Street concerning the development of a new police station, as well as to talk with you about a City Hall master plan effort and where that may go should the police department be relocated from the campus. So without further ado, as you all know, the City Hall campus consists of 5 buildings on 3.03 acres of land. Combined, they have about 124,000 square feet. There are 223.5 full-time employees that are based at the campus, 116 of which are currently with the police department. That's a 2023 number, or roughly 52% of them. There are 115 parking spaces on site, 32 of which are reserved for the general public. The campus was built over many years. The library, as you know, is 1938. City Hall is 1905 with the auditorium. The police station and the annex is 1974, and the Green Street Community Center, which was originally an armory, is also turn of the century, 20th century. The police station that is here today was built to replace what is the Margarita's restaurant in Bicentennial Square. The police department originally, when it was constructed in '74, was 2 stories. The 3rd story was added in 1986. There was a renovation that occurred in 2001 when certain changes occurred actually with the fire department, and the fire marshal was relocated, and the Horseshoe Pond Lane facility was developed for the fire department. The facility today is 21,790 square feet. There are 118.19 full-time equivalent employees there. That's the FY 2024 number. Again, it's roughly it's a little more than half of all the staff based at the campus. We thought it'd be helpful to share some population and trend data with you about the community and the police department, so here we are. Before you, this is a chart that shows Concord's population and police calls for service from 1980 through 2023. Over the past 5 decades, the community has really grown and evolved. Over the past 43 years, the population has increased by a little more than 14,000. It's about 14,300, or really 47% during that period of time. Police calls have increased by about 25,500 calls, or 112%. The black line on the slide depicts the trend. And as you look at that slide, there's some interesting things there. Keep in mind, in 2010, we were in recession. That was the height of the Great Recession that was occurring, so police calls were up. 2020 is when COVID had hit, so police calls were a little bit down because everybody was trapped inside. But helps gives an indication of where the community has been and where we think it's going. Another way to look at all of this is police calls per capita or per resident. So you can see in 1980 we had about 0.75 calls per capita. We're at a little more, call it about 1.1 today. It's a 44% increase over time, and it helps inform where we're going. Staffing is also an important trend to take a look at. So in 1980, the department had 75 staff, 60 officers, 15 non-sworn staff at the department. At 2023, it was 116.2 full-time equivalents, 90 officers, 26.2% staff. The sworn officers have increased about 50% during that 43-year time frame. Non-sworn staff has increased by about 75%. Total staff is up by about 55%. So with all that backdrop, if you take a look at this slide, which there's this table 1 in the staff report, which is page 4. This one's been condensed a little bit to better fit in the presentation. We're able to see where we think we're going. So we think in the next 20 years or so, we're going to have a population of around 56,000. We think calls for service could be around 82,000. We think calls per capita would be around 1.33. We believe we're going to have around 113 sworn police officers and about 37 support staff, which gives a total staff of about 151 persons in the department. So give you a little bit of background as we go into space analysis. So space planning, there was a 2021 study. It was a needs assessment and a space plan that was prepared by a local architectural engineering group. And there were a variety of issues that were identified as part of that study. They're listed on the screen. So one, the 1974 design of the facility really limits renovation options. There are a variety of challenges with the building as it is today. I think the chief would argue that probably even in 1974, it probably never really met the community's needs. But it really makes it challenging to renovate it in a way that would help the city become an accredited police department. Secondly, there's insufficient space at the campus really to expand the building in a way that meets our needs, but also balances the needs of all the other departments and activities that occur at the campus. Remember, we only have about 3.03 acres. We have a lot of activity here. Thirdly, going back to the design of the building, there are really challenges with adjacencies of uses or separations of uses. So there are some things we want close to each other in a modern police station. There are some things we want to keep them completely separated. And it's really impossible to achieve that with the structure that we have and the limitations that we have. And again, that goes back to hindering our ability to become accredited under state and national standards. There's a lack of secure, dedicated parking to serve the department. Currently, they only have about 37 parking spaces to support their operation here at the campus. And again, there's space needs of other departments located at the campus, which also have to be considered with the question of what to do. All that said, there was a floor plan that was developed in the 2021 study, which is part of your packet, that essentially looked at bringing the facility from about 21,800 square feet to about 27,700 square feet. And there were 2 additions that were proposed that were shown in yellow here in a goal to try and actually achieve that. We were only really able to max out at about that 27,700 square feet because we started chewing into the already very scarce parking supply that was here, trying to balance the other needs at the campus. The other challenge with this proposal really was that it was going to be done in 4 phases. So the facility was going to be under renovation for an extended period of time, and spaces were going to have to move multiple times before they actually got to where they were finally going to be. And that's a very inefficient way to try and do a renovation. And it's also very tricky to try and do it that way, especially for a facility that is occupied and used on a 24/7 basis. So for those reasons, it was really decided that the best recommendation would be to try and relocate the police department from the campus to another facility or site elsewhere in the community. As part of the diligence that we've completed for Boonton Street, there has been an updated 2024 space plan analysis. So you can see, again, this is also in your report. You have the existing the existing Green Street facility, its total square footage, kind of what the usable spaces are now, so about 20,500 of it's usable. And our consultant has gone back and, based on their experience with other police stations in New Hampshire and elsewhere, has really determined that we need about 44,396 square feet of usable space to meet the current needs of the department as well as its projected needs over the next 20 years. We note that includes a firing range for about 4,100 square feet. We can talk about that, but we think the firing range is probably going to stay in its current location over in Pembroke for now. So last spring, really, the opportunity for Boonton Street came along. It was previously owned by the Concord Group Insurance operation. They had launched a plan to consolidate and relocate operations to another community in southern New Hampshire. In addition to this facility that they had at Boonton Street, which is about 38,000 square feet, they also leased space from the Dupree companies elsewhere in the city. And as part of their effort to try and relocate from the community, they entered into negotiations with the Dupree company to terminate that lease. And there was an offer, an inducement, if you will, made by the Concord Group to the Dupree company to give the Dupree company a right of first refusal, if you will, before it went on the open market. The Dupree company contacted city administration, made us aware of this particular opportunity, and we started having conversations about would acquisition of the property make sense for the city, for a police station or other city use. One thing led to another. We initially tried to negotiate an agreement with the Concord Group Insurance folks whereby a purchase and sale agreement would be put in place with the Dupree company, and then it would be assigned to us to allow us to complete that effort. However, the amount of time that we thought we were going to need to complete our diligence to make sure the property was suitable for our needs didn't allow that concept to move forward. So as such, the Dupree company and the city ended up reaching an agreement whereby the Dupree company acquired the property and has agreed to hold it for up to 6 months to allow the city to go forward with our diligence. In exchange, the city would purchase the property from the Dupree company for the $3.5 million price that the Dupree company paid the Concord Group Insurance folks, plus the Dupree company's holding costs, which we estimate are around $451,000. I would note that the Dupree company went into debt to actually make this happen. So a little bit of background there. The property itself is 2 lots. It's about 2.16 acres of land. It's a 38,000 square foot building. It has about 700 feet of frontage on Boonton Street. It is served by 3 driveways. There is a single driveway in at the southerly end of the property. There's a median here, so it's not full service. There's a full service intersection here, which is at a traffic signal, which is nice and rare. And there is also additional access on, this is North State Street up here that goes to Horseshoe Pond Lane that gets you back out to a traffic signal at that location. It's got about 113 parking spaces at it right now. It's a mid-century modern building, which is unusual for Concord. It's also a nice example of it. The current assessed value of the site is about $3.3 million, actually $3,346,000. That's with a 79.4% equalization ratio. When you apply the ratio, it gives you a value of about $4.2 million for market value. It does generate around $89,000 in taxes annually. The strength of the site, it's located on our urban growth boundary. This is a concept in our planning regulations whereby we try to focus intense development in areas of the city that have suitable transportation, utility infrastructure, things of that nature. It's got excellent access to I-93, 393, Route 3. It's a mile from City Hall. It's adjacent to fire headquarters. We've already talked about the stats about the property and the driveways. It's got all the major utilities that it would need to be served to support a police station. It's also a willing seller, so there's no eminent domain here, for example, which is important. There's some other considerations, though. It's a triangle-shaped lot, so triangles are generally a little less efficient to work with because buildings and parking spaces are rectangles and squares. So it's a little less efficient to work with. The historic building is important, but it's also 67 years old, and it's got a lot. it's got some issues that we're going to talk about here in a second. And then there's long-term future expansion. This property directly abuts the historic district, and someday, when and if additional land acquisition is required, that's going to have to be considered. Just here on the screen to give you an orientation, so the yellow line is the historic district, which was established in 1975. The pink lot is the lot. The building is, we believe, outside of the historic district. Long-term opportunities for expansion may include the property to the north, which is owned by the Keystone Company. We might be a possibility to talk with the Lutheran Church, which is located to the southeast, which also directly is adjacent to another city property. We also own this land here, which is known as Bradley Park, which is really leftover land from transportation improvements that were done in the past. So there is some opportunity around the site, but it's something to be mindful of in the long term. Just by way of background, the City Council in December approved Resolution 9046, which appropriated $4,090,000 for the acquisition of the property and related closing costs. Purchase and sale agreement was signed in December. We have a deadline to close of June 12th, 2024. Purchase price we've already talked about. The purchase is subject to our due diligence, which we're going to talk about here tonight. The city has the ability to not go forward if it's not comfortable with the results of its diligence. So without further ado, title, we completed a title review with a local law firm, and we also engaged a surveyor to complete what's called an Alta boundary survey. We found that the property appears to have good, clean, and marketable title suitable for a police station. The only twist that we found, if you will, is the adjacent Lutheran Church has verbal permission to use the parking lot on Sundays, and they have submitted a letter to us recognizing that that might not be able to go forward and understanding that the city could terminate that. So that's the title review. We did do a phase 1 environmental site assessment. That is really a review of existing records in state, local, and federal databases. We didn't find anything there of huge concern. There were underground storage tanks at this location at one point in time for heating oil. All of those have, all but one of them has a closure report. The one that does not is a 500-gallon gas tank, which was buried underground for a generator that was on the inside of the building, if you can believe that, in 1967. We don't see there's any major concern there. I would note that we did not do any soil groundwater testing because that is not customary as part of the phase 1 report. That report is also about 1,400 pages long. The last is a hazardous building material survey. The Dupree Company did some work in that regard, which is really looking for asbestos, lead paint, PCB containing materials. They did some exterior work on the curtain wall, which they provided to us. We did some additional work. We identified about $260,000 of asbestos in today's dollars. There is lead paint at the building, which is not surprising given the vintage. Lead paint was used through 1979. Lead paint would have to be further characterized but would have to be also addressed as part of a renovation plan, and that would require additional characterization to fully understand that. There's also universal waste at the property, which is not unusual. There are 3 large transformers that are in the basement that would also have to be addressed as part of the redevelopment. But again, nothing there that was overly concerning to us. The facility itself, we had a team look at it. The items that we think are good and reusable, the structure is good. There's a recent air conditioning plant at the building that was put in about 9 years ago. That actually might be able to be reused. The emergency generator on site might also be able to be reused. Just about everything else, though, at the building is functionally depreciated or fully depreciated and in need of replacement. It's all those building systems that you see there. Essentially, there would be a full gut renovation of the building and replacement of a lot of those key systems. Again, they're all 67 years old and they're at the end of their useful life. Some other things, this building was built before sprinklers were required. There is no sprinkler, so there would have to need to be installed. There's a variety of ADA issues that would have to be addressed. And there's a general lack of insulation in the building, which is also typical for this particular vintage. As discussed with the council at the time, we've done 2 preliminary concepts for how this site could be redeveloped into a police station. The first one is option 1. And just to orient you, this is we're calling it demolition and new construction. So under this scenario, the existing 38,000 square foot building would be demolished. It would be replaced with a 2-story building with some partial basement. to yield a 47,153 square foot structure, 80 parking spaces. The architect has estimated that the cost of that project would be about $45.6 million. That is based on a projection of what cost will be in Q2 of calendar 25. So that's a March 25 estimate. It excludes land, it excludes environmental abatement, it excluded some other costs. We're going to talk about our projections later, but we think Q2 is probably a little optimistic for starting a project like this. The second option is here, which is adaptive reuse and expansion. So the yellow box is the existing building as it is today, and the gray boxes are additions that would be made to the building in order to achieve a new police station. It's going to be between essentially 1 and 3 stories. There will be 91 parking spaces, so a little bit more than what would be yielded on the other. It's also more economical. It's about a $38 million project based on the architect's estimate. This approach is very similar to what the city has done for other projects. It reminds me of what the city did with the former Dames School and the Citywide Community Center, which was a mix of using older structures, some of which were built in the 60s, some of which were built in the 40s, 30s, and then making an addition with modern structure at that time, which was 2017-18. It's very similar. When you put the two options next to each other, we kind of did a basic matrix here. We feel that option 2, which is preserve the existing building and reuse it and expand it, is the best option for the community. It achieves our space program for at least the next 20 years. It includes some vacant space on the inside for future expansion, which is nice. We feel it would yield a facility that's capable to be accredited. Includes space for the parking division. It allows us to relocate the prosecutor's office from lease space in Horseshoe Pond to be in the police department, which is important for operations and interdepartmental coordination. There is a parking supply. It's a little bit under what the consultant is recommending, but still vastly beyond where we are today. It preserves the building, and we think it's the best option for the taxpayers financially. So looking ahead, if the city was going to proceed with acquiring this property and doing the project, the first is that we would have to look at weatherizing and securing the building. We would presume that would be about 2 years after the date of acquisition before we'd start construction. The weatherization would include securing the property, installing a fire alarm system, making some modifications to the plumbing system so we could put the building to sleep. A variety of things like that, connecting the building to the city's fiber system so we can have live security cameras going back to the police station, things of that nature. While we're holding the property for those 2 years, we're going to incur costs for insurance, utilities, groundskeeping, snow removal. So when you look at it, it's about $354,000 all in. If we're going to go forward with option 2, our estimated cost it's about $46.65 million. The hard costs, which are construction, is a little more than 31.6. Soft costs, which is design, moving costs, oversight, insurances, things of that nature, is about 6.1. We have a healthy contingency on this at this point of 3.77 million. Just to hedge our bets basically as we move into a design. So it's 41.5 million. Down below, you can see the land purchase, the closing cost, the diligence. All those funds have already been appropriated by the City Council at a total of $4.165 million, which gives you the total of $46.665. Council also asked for projected operating and maintenance costs, so we have done that using the information we have available. So the existing Green Street facility, the current expenses for everything that goes with operating a building, this is not police staff or other things, but it's utilities, it's maintenance, it's custodial, it's all those things. It's about $295,000. If you're going to project it out to 2029, which we think is the first full operating year for a new facility at Boonton Street, it's about $320,000. We did a comparison of if we owned Boonton Street today, what would the operating cost be? It's about $625,000. And we think in 2029, which again we are projecting would be the first full year of operations if a police station was built at Boonton Street, would be about $676,000. I would note that the new facility is really 2.5 times pretty much the size of what we have today. It's literally 30,350 square feet larger than what we have. So those costs are being driven by that fact. Presuming that the police department was relocated to Boonton Street, there are questions of what comes with the campus and the 21,700 square foot building that we have. So we feel it would be appropriate to go forward and look at the entire campus with a master plan study to look at all 5 structures, the entire acreage, to determine what all the needs are of every department and how to best allocate those needs going forward, so we can, reuse the existing police station in a way that maximizes return for the taxpayers, but also our operational efficiencies for all the departments that are here. Presuming we're estimating that the budgetary cost for that would be about $250,000. There would be a bond issued in 2025 for that. We have also estimated what we think the cost would be to renovate the police station looking forward for fiscal 26 and 28. We're anticipating that that renovation cost would be about $12.2 million. Design would be appropriated in 2026. Construction would happen in 2028 after the new police station was completed. We haven't carried dollars for renovating any other buildings at the campus yet because, frankly, we don't know what the study is going to yield as far as recommendations in that regard. We do know that we're going to renovate the police station, but we don't know if we're going to renovate any other structures. Schedule is here. So property acquisition would occur on or before June 12th. Weatherization would occur this spring and summer. Design and permitting would happen in 25 and 26. We would actually come to the council in fiscal 25 budget seeking funds to design a new facility. Final bidding would happen in fiscal 26. Construction happens in 26 through 28. Move-in happens in fiscal 28, and occupancy would happen in November of 27, which is also fiscal 28. You can see how it dovetails with the schedule down below for the master plan for the campus and renovation of the police station. So financial projections. So you have a table 10 in the staff report, which is page 18, which has all of these things together in one table, but unfortunately to try and make this in a way that people could see it on the screen, I had to break it up. So what you have before you is the financial projections for the new police station at Boonton Street from fiscal 25 to fiscal 30. And it lists all the components. These are all debt service components over here. So these are all the bonds. So property acquisition, the diligence, the weatherization, design, and then we'd probably sell the construction bond in 2 different issuances to minimize the impact on the tax rate. And it gives you $45.9 million in total bonds. This is what we're projecting the tax cost to the city would be for each one of those fiscal years. So it ramps up over time, eventually goes to about $3.988 million over time. There are some credits here, so we're proposing as this goes forward that the parking fund actually pay rent to the general fund because we have fund accounting here, so parking should be doing that. We're projecting that we're going to terminate the prosecutor's lease in Horseshoe Pond. There's some savings there that will come back to help support this. We haven't carried anything for the human services lease yet, which would actually show up in the campus study, but we showed it on here. So the tax rate impact in fiscal 25 we're projecting is $0.01 per thousand, and by the time fiscal 30 comes along, the tax rate impact would be about 74 cents per thousand. I would note that those projections are based on the current total assessed value of the city, which I have here, which is $5,197,027,215, and that we're holding that number constant as we've done these projections out over the next 5 years. Obviously, the assessed value of the city will change with real growth and other things. If you look at the next slide, it is the City Hall campus renovation, the financial projections there. Again, similar schedule. The total bonded amount is $12.2 million. You can see the schedule for when those things would be authorized by the council and when costs would start to occur. We would probably delay selling the design bond for a while because we would like to, same with the police station, the new police station, really have that debt issued simultaneously with the construction debt because it allows us to spread it out over a longer period. Otherwise, we'd have to spread it over 5 years. The tax rate impact in 25 is 0. By 2030, the tax rate impact is about 20 cents per thousand. So then when you combine these things together, you can see where we end up. So the combined annual cost over time goes to that number there, which is about $4.9 million. The total tax rate impact is 94 cents based on the current taxable assessed value of about $5.2 billion. And then you can see what the impact will be to properties with 100,000 assessed value, 250, 350, and a half a million, what those impacts would be. In summary, we're here only today to ask for authorization to proceed to closing. But we wanted to tell you where we think we're going if we do buy the property so you can make an informed decision. If the council wants to proceed with acquisition of the property, we'll be back for those other appropriations starting in fiscal 25 and going out through fiscal 28. So we're just here to show you where we think we're headed. If you do want to proceed with all this, we think there are many benefits for the police department and other city operations. Again, it will yield a new facility that we believe will meet the department's needs, both current and projected for at least the next 20 years. We think it removes some barriers to having the department become accredited both at the state and national level. We feel that a new facility will strengthen morale, enhance recruitment and retention efforts. You just heard about that from Jen Johnston. We think it improves safety and operations over the current facility by separating uses or putting uses together that should be together. The benefit for the other city departments, it allows the prosecutors to get out of lease space and gets them in with the police department, who they work with hand in glove, and improves that interdepartmental cooperation. We think it creates opportunities to renovate the police station, the current facility, to serve other municipal uses and other public needs. It creates an opportunity to return the Human Services Department back to the City Hall campus, which is also in lease space, and save some money there. And again, it helps the fire department as well. We think fire and police work together often. It would put them right next to each other, essentially, for improved operational efficiencies. Some other thoughts. We feel that it's an interesting project. It preserves and will renovate a 67-year-old mid-century modern building. We think that's important. We also feel that that it's unlikely that we will find an equally suitable opportunity for a new police station somewhere else in the greater downtown area. So we really do think that this is probably your best shot at finding a site that's suitable. If this site is not acceptable for whatever reason, the costs that we presented in here probably will not change materially. We think either way that the order of magnitude costs wherever this facility may end up, if it's not at Boone Street, are probably in the same order of magnitude. And with that, Your Honor, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Any questions from Mr. Walsh or the Chief? Councilor Schlosser.
Thank you very much for the presentation. That was quite clear and concise. So thank you for summarizing that. On slide 6 and 7, there's the police calls for service per resident and the total police calls. I would just ask, I have two questions. One, what happened in 2010 that bumped up from this other seeming trend? Was there something special about 2010 that the calls per resident or the total calls were higher than those other years?
Excuse me. I don't have a direct answer for that.
Okay.
With respect to calls for service, especially when you're looking over 5 different decades of calls for service, what was a call for service in 1980 is not a call for service today and vice versa, so they may wash themselves out. I think calls for service sometimes is related to your staff, right? If you're at full staff, you have a lot of proactive work that's taking place, which counts as calls for service. So my lean right here is that in that particular time period, we were at near full staff.
Thank you. May I have another question,
Follow-up?
please? On slide 9, we project that calls for service are going to continue to go up to 1.33, it looks like, by 2044. What is the reason for the increase in, and this is calls for service per resident? Is there a thinking about why that number's going up?
We simply use trend analysis. It's what's happened over the last 43 years. The calls for service has continually increased. I would augment the Chief's comments by just, again, noting that there was a recession in 2010 that might have also driven calls for service. It's a vastly different economy in 2010 than we have today. And I would defer to the manager.
In addition to that, I think one of the things that gets lost a lot of times when looking at population numbers is that the population of Concord doubles during the day. So when you add that, you add the fact that we're the home for all the federal offices, the state offices, the county office, and the central area of employment, and will be for the next 50 years. All that demand that goes in, it occurs on a daily basis, I think really drives a lot of what's going on, not only in the police department, but also in the fire department.
Thank you. Okay. Councilor McNamara.
Thank you. I'm really excited about the reuse of this project. The expansion, the amount of expansion that's in this project, and I know that we're already tight and we want to do a lot of more programming. Is there space in this that you don't foresee being used in the first 5 years that would be not used?
I believe the architects that put this together, there are two areas, one in the basement and one on the third floor that they would basically allow you to grow into over a period of time. It would be more office space or more storage or evidence space, you know, those things that you would grow into.
Councilor Fennessy.
Thank you. This is probably for the chief. Looking at the slide, page 9, that talks about your staffing, 116.2. Of those individuals, how many of those people are actually working in the building full-time as opposed to out on patrol?
That's a very good question. I think that right now, on a Monday through Friday, normal business hours, we're probably looking at about 60 some odd people that are actually in the building. If you're talking about the parking staff that's in the field and the police officers in the field, they're coming and going all day. So it's hard.
Can I ask a follow-up? This is probably to Mr. Walsh. In one of the slides, you talked about repurposing the current police station for other programming. I know one of the departments we've talked about is human services. Obviously, one of the benefits of doing this is getting the prosecutor's office back in with the police. Are there any other programmatic changes for departments that we're anticipating? Obviously, the proposal is that we do the master plan, but what other departments are we talking about? What are the benefits we're looking, or the problems we're looking to solve?
Sure. I think there's a couple of things that it creates a wonderful opportunity. So one of the things that we might be able to do additionally is rejigger the campus so some of our more retail-oriented operations, maybe the clerk's office, maybe collections, where there's a lot of foot traffic comes in, we might have the ability to perhaps move them to a space. The police station is much more ADA compliant, even though it's not, but it's at ground level, so there's no steps, there's no challenge to get inside, where, you know, right now with City Hall, it's a very challenging setup to get inside the building. So I think there's an opportunity there. I think there's an opportunity to look at maybe trying to get some of the departments that are spread over multiple spaces together in a single space. For example, the Office of Management and Budget, which is part of finance, is not with the rest of the finance department. It might be the opportunity to merge them with accounting. I would say my department, community development, is spread in a variety of places. We're in 3 different locations at the campus. That's very challenging because we have a continuum of care, if you will, for the permitting process. So somebody comes in from us with a preliminary idea all the way through their certificate of occupancy, and it would be wonderful to have administration, planning, engineering, and code all in a single space, because I think we'll get better customer service and be able to achieve more things than we can't right now. So I think there's that opportunity there. The IT department is next door in the Green Street Community Center. They're in 3 different offices over there. There's a huge lack of storage space at the campus right now. We've lost meeting rooms because of that on the first floor. I struggle to think of a department at the campus that frankly doesn't have a space need problem. And by putting another 21 or 22,000 square feet into play, I think there's a real opportunity to address those needs, but also help get us to a place where, you know, modern municipal government is, even though we're operating in buildings that were built in some cases more than a century ago, for a very different time.
Councilor Keach.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Walsh, would it be fair to take those police numbers and extrapolate those to across all city departments? I mean, looking at population, I wouldn't call it call for service, but I mean just customer service, the percentage of growth, the additional employees. Are those numbers translatable to pretty much every city department on the campus?
I think if you look back at some of the stats that we've had over the years, that yeah, I think you'll find that some departments may not have actually existed in 1980. The HR department, the IT department probably did not. But suffice to say, I think it's probably safe to say that over the last 43 years, we've become much busier. Things kind of ebb and flow. I mean, development in 1986, 1987 in Concord was pretty brisk, but I would tell you that the folks who lived through that are now saying that we're back to that again here in the age that we're living in. So, but I think it's a safe statement to say that virtually every department's probably busier than it was 43 years ago.
Yes. If I could, I think it's, when you look at this realistically, and I'll cite you an example in a minute, is that, the projections are based on a 20-year projection, but in reality, this is 40 years. It'll be 40 years before the next addition to a police station occurs. That's just the gestation period in the city of Concord. When we did the community center in 2018, the original planning for that was done and the identification of that was done in 2001. So in 2001, we said we need a community center, and it occurred in 2018. In 1996 and 1998, the city council said, we need to create a unified community development department all in one place to provide those services. It's 2024. We don't have it. And it is not possible under the existing campus to make that happen. So that is something the chamber looked at, the city looked at, and all of the working with the development community said, this is the goal we want to achieve, and we could not achieve it. So again, even though we're showing the projections that demonstrates that it makes sense for 20 years out, I'm really thinking this is, I'm telling the police department, this is it for 40 years, guys and folks. You're not going to be back here in 20 years saying we need a 20,000 square foot addition, because there's other needs in the community. So.
Chief Boswell will still be here.
That's he's getting younger all the time. So.
Any other questions? Councilor Sekou.
Thank you, Your Honor. So I don't know, it's your question or my question, because this is a projection, and 46,000 for 2026, right? And as we see the trend in the market now, where inflation is high, things might change in 2025, hopefully, or 2026. If that's the case, are you guys planning to come back to the city council for more on the taxpayers, or what is, it's more than budgeted, what is the next plan?
The only piece that we're here for now is whether or not the city council is interested in acquiring the property. What we're laying out for you is, you're taking a step. You wouldn't want to take the step to acquire the property if, based on the information you have available now, it does not make sense to take the next steps. So, but we recognize the fact that when it comes time, as Matt had mentioned, Mr. Walsh had mentioned, you look at it in the 2025 budget, the city council will work with staff and make a determination of how much and when it makes sense to move forward with the renovations of the buildings or the demolition of the building. So you have multiple steps that you need to take, but based on all the information we have now, based on all the costs, escalators that we see now, the numbers you have in front of you are accurate for making decisions now. But again, you would not be doing construction until 2027, 2026, 2027, and then finishing off. So you're right, prices could go up, prices could go up a little. But we're counting on the escalation numbers in there. We wouldn't want to give you something where it comes in and we're saying it's 45 million and it turns out to be 65 million or even 50 million. We're going to give you the best numbers, and these are the best numbers that are available.
Follow up, please, Your Honor. Yeah, so thank you. My worries is that when we say, okay, we give that authorization, and you talked about demolition, and you talk about renovation, and based on the cost today, either way, if this is approved, we own it now.
Yes.
It's still a cost for us going forward, whatever we do with it.
Right.
And that's where my concern were. That's why I was asking that question, because if we own a building, we have to use it. It might cost taxpayer more money. It might cost them less if we decided either way to go with it. Yeah.
I wrestled with the same thing, wrestling counselor. And one of the approaches that I took looking at this would be, let's just say this is not the right opportunity. Let's move on to something else. Whatever that something else is going to be, the site for that location to make it work is going to be more expensive than this one. Whatever the cost is, if you delay this a year, 2 years, 3 years down the line, whatever the cost is going to be more than this. So the real question comes back to is, do we want to do a new police station? If the answer is no, and just stick with what we got, and that's what we're going to ride with the next 40 years, then this is an easy decision to make. To me, the answer is yes, you need it. We owe it to the community for the next 40 years, and this is the best economical and location that we can come up with today. And I think that we're going to come up with for the next dozen years.
Thank you. And during my intervention, I need to say thank you for a great presentation, because it's very detailed and we have the numbers to play with.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Councilor Fennessy.
I have a question. I don't know if it's probably to the city manager, and I don't like to do hypotheticals, but if we go forward with this purchase and we decide that we want to do the police station on Booton Street, but as a result, we would have to sell the old police station that's on the campus, would your preference be to sell that or not move forward with locating the new police station on Booton Street?
Hypothetically, given
I'm putting
into discussion, I would sell that building because it's not going to serve the community going forward. It can't. Every day that goes by, it's going to be worse. If anybody, I think a lot of the councils have taken through that. Just take a look through evidence storage and all the requirements and the length of time we need to hold on to things to do it properly. It's going to get worse it does get worse every single day that goes on. So I would recommend, if that was the only choice, that, which I hope it isn't, because quiet property in this campus, we had looked at, can I go off track a little bit?
Absolutely.
The state had looked at.
Yes, you may.
No, sorry. When the state was looking around for properties too at one time, and there's opportunities to buy properties and sell properties. We could probably find a willing buyer to come in there and do that, and do something with that property. But also, as I look forward to what we want to do on this campus, earlier you heard the Concord Public Library, if that is going to stay in the downtown, in this area, it makes sense for us to continue to own that property, because all of a sudden, you're going to be impacting parking, because picture if you could eliminate the parking associated with the police station and provide more parking available to the general community. That's one of the biggest concerns that people visiting the library have. They can't park there. Now we could actually make something like that happen, and hopefully over time have additional space to expand the library on campus also. So I would prefer to keep it, but if that's what it came down to versus a new police station, that's an easy choice.
Councilor Sickle.
Thank you. And this is maybe for Matt. How many of our buildings now, facilities that we are renting today for our staff?
How many facilities are we renting?
Yeah.
We presently only rent one facility. It is for the prosecutor's office, Human Services Department, and it is 6,145 square feet.
That's only one.
That is the only one that I'm aware of that we currently rent.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Councilor Foot.
Thanks, sir. There was some talk about the appearance of the building and what's going to be left. And going through your laundry list of things that are going to be replaced, will the facade of the building look any similar? Will it look any similar to what it is today, or not?
That is a fair question. So if you look at the 2024 study and the way the architect has put together the estimate, they are estimating that we would replace the curtain wall on the building. And they're recommending that for a couple reasons. One, all the glass is single pane. If you look at some of the photos, there's moisture that's gotten in there, and you'll see that some of the mastic is actually coming out. There's black staining that is there. So they are recommending the replacement of the curtain wall. The curtain wall that goes back, I think it's important that is in the vocabulary of a mid-century modern building and does not detract from the architectural statement of the building that's been there for the last 67 years. There's some concept sketches that are in the report, which I did not put here because they will not be what is the final architecture for the building, so I don't want people to get on track about that. But whatever goes back will be as quality as far as being consistent with and honor the mid-century modern building that is there today.
But there will be material changes to the facade of the facility.
Yes, there would be. Yep,
Okay.
there would be.
Could I
Follow up?
You mentioned weatherization, so it's my understanding the building's been empty since last fall. They didn't weatherize the building over the course of the winter?
They have not, is my understanding. We've walked through a couple of times. They did have a skeleton crew in there that it took a little while, even after the Dupree Company acquired it, for the Concord Group to get fully out of there. So it's my understanding right now that it's not winterized, that it's actually being heated and maintained in a vacant state, but not in full hibernation.
One more question. So
Further follow-up.
Excuse me?
Further follow-up.
The operational cost, I see that on page 20, slide 27, the operational costs are going to approximately double. And if the city purchases that property, then we're losing another $90,000 in annual tax revenue. So it's about a $400,000 swing. Help me out. What increase on and you've got the house, the dwellings listed, $350,000 and a $500,000 house. So what's the operational increase by building either one of these alternatives? Do we know what $400,000 in additional operating cost does to the tax rate?
Got that, Matt?
Percentage? You want the percentage?
Well,
Just the increase as
It's a little less than 1%.
Three-quarters%.
Yeah.
And so what is that on a $350,000 house?
I'll get back to you.
Sorry, I didn't have to go too deep in this, but I kind of.
I'll get back to you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
If I could add
Mr.
one
City
point.
Manager.
So you know, Councilor, the way the materials work and what will end up being the final piece, very much like the City Council worked on the garage down at Store Street and the community center up at the Heights, you will make the final decision. It will come before you. You will look at it and say, that's the color glass, that's the materials we want to use, and we'll tell you how much things are going to cost. It's wonderful. Like having a committee put together, but the final decision is yours.
Thank you. We had discussion earlier, and some of what we were to understand was the facade was going to look to preserve what was there. It sounds as though there's going to be, like I said, a material change. I'm just clarifying that. Thank you.
Any other questions? I have a couple. Chief, one of the advantages of a new headquarters, more space that's been mentioned in the presentation and elsewhere, is the possibility of accrediting the police department. Could you just talk a little bit about why that's important to the department and why it's important to the city?
Well, accreditation, whether or not it's state or national, is important because they lay out your best practices and your best policy statements that you can have. The command staff at the police department has always maintained that if we are not accredited either nationally or at state level, at least we're going to act like one. So all of our policies are in alignment with CALIA, which is the national standard, and as well as the state. That's really important. I think in the state of New Hampshire, there's only maybe 13 to 20 departments that are nationally accredited. And we are actually working towards state accreditation right now. We have been since they published the standards in July of '23. We're in preliminary stages. I would say that we're probably only about 15% complete. I think that over the next, say, 6 to 12 to 18 months, we'll ramp that up to hopefully get near all the
standards complete.
Okay, thank you. Second question. Looking at the very detailed report, and thank you to staff for a really comprehensive report, one of the best I've seen in terms of laying out options and future need. Going through the list of inadequacies at the current site, I couldn't help but think that you must stay up at night worrying about what could go wrong in any particular area of that building. You know, is that a fair assessment?
Absolutely. I mean, you know, I've been here since the late 80s, but the building started in 75, and in 75 it was 2 floors. They had in mind one place for evidence, as the city manager talked about. 1985, they built the 3rd floor. They put in a second area for evidence. Today we're at 10 plus areas within the building that we've had to commandeer just to house the evidence and to secure it properly. We're also, in 1975, before construction was completed, the city council actually hired a consultant because of some concerns about the design of the building, and one of them was the ingress, egress, and transferring detainees. And essentially, you have to traverse a span of 144 feet from getting a detainee out of a car in a garage into the main facility, past an interview room, past the records division, past an exterior door, down the stairs into the holding. That is a dangerous or potentially dangerous scenario.
No, thank you, Chief. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
All right. No other questions? Again, thank you very much for a thorough report.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
Chair will entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that this committee, the council adopt, or the council go forward and allow the city to move forward with the acquisition.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Council Keach.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Discussion.
When the appropriate time comes, I would request a roll call vote.
Okay. Thank you. Council Fennessy.
Thank you. I'll be supporting the report. I think we still have a lot of questions with respect to what the actual project is going to look like, but I apologize to the city manager for putting him on the spot with my question, but I think it's a really important question because you know, the decision we're making right now is if we're going to move the police department, does this location make sense? And I think from what we have seen from the due diligence and the reports and what we've heard from Mr. Walsh and the chief, this location makes a lot of sense. Now, what exactly that looks like, whether we reuse the building there, start anew, whether it's, you know, 20,000 feet or 52,000 feet, there's a lot more things to decide. But I think we need to keep an open mind. While ideally we'd be able to do that project and renovate the old police station. We've seen what happens with other communities where they've had to make choices because the costs associated with new public safety buildings often are much more expensive than anticipated. So I think in making this decision, we got to keep our eyes wide open because if we want to do this, we may have to make certain trade-offs. Based on what I've heard from city staff, I think it makes sense, and they have suggested at least that they're willing to make that trade-off. So I would support the report.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Sakoo.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm going to second what he said because based on my questions, I had a reservation because of the cost, but also when I asked earlier about if the city has any other department that they are using for rent or that renting, because I think I would have loved to see a plan when we go forward with this, what all the building will be used for, because it seems like we are in doubt. We don't know what we are going to do with it yet, and that's, for me, I think it's another question. Due to the growing population that is coming, I know the demand is high. I know that we need that, no doubt. but I have a lot of question. I support it, but I have a lot of question going forward.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Todd.
Thank you, Your Honor. I agree with everything my colleagues have said so far. And I too am, when I read the report, which was excellent, and thank you, Mr. Walsh, for doing such a great job with that. But I was glad that I was sitting down when I looked at the projections for the amount of tax increase that, when you see numbers like that, and then you know those are in the out years, and you don't know what else you're going to have to anticipate that you're going to have to spend dollars on in those out years, it really gives you pause. And I know that we've been hearing from residents in the community about these kinds of increases already. On the other hand, I've also heard from members of the community who have specifically said that they would like to see, if anything, more police presence in the community. They want to see people on foot, officers on foot, walking Village Street. I've had suggestions of people who would like to see the current library, Pennacook branch, when it's reused as a substation, as it once was for police. So I know that there is a focus and a concern on continuing to support the police department by residents, and I'm afraid that this is the cost of doing that. I'm sure we'll find some ways to make defray those costs and even them out as best we can, but I'm going to support this for those reasons, that the public, I think, really does want us to invest in the police department. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Todd. Councilor Grady Sexton.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just want to say I think it's very important that we snag this property now. I think, as we all heard, there's very limited available property for us to look at when it comes to a new location for a desperately needed new police department. And I also am in the same boat as the councilors who spoke previously in terms of the sticker shock attached to what a new police department might look like in this location. And I think that all of us understand that although we don't have control over the school board and their expenditures, we have a middle school that is going to cost this community an awful lot of money, and we need to be very careful with the taxpayers' dollars. And so I just want to assure the community that we will continue to have multiple conversations about what a new police department at that location might look like, or a possible renovation, and that there'll be multiple opportunities, I'm sure, for public input along the way.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Kretovic.
Thank you, Your Honor. I echo exactly what Councilor Todd was saying, as well as Councilor Grady Sexton. I really appreciate the work of our Community Development Department. That had to be causing you heart palpitations to come before us with such a number, especially, as Councilor Grady Sexton said, with all the other challenges in the community for facilities all over the city. For perspective, there are not a lot of houses in our market at $100,000. If there was, we wouldn't be having conversations about affordable housing. And we need to be thinking about $95 a year. It's a year. It's still a week's worth of groceries for somebody at that $100,000 home. That's real impact to a family. And when you elevate that up, knowing there is such a limited amount of supply in the community at $100,000, and now you ramp it up to a $250,000 assessed property, most houses are exceeding $350,000 in the market, and it's just elevating things out of control. So it is an opportunity, and sometimes we have to take the opportunity, and I appreciate the opportunity to mothball in case we need to set it aside for a time which is more appropriate. Maybe construction comes down, whatever the forecast might be. But acquiring the property now is important, and I'll be supporting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Keach.
Thank you, Your Honor. I too will be voting in support of this move. But I also want to point out that I'm encouraged to hear the discussion around the table tonight, because not too long ago we were talking about defunding our police department, and that got me fairly discouraged. And I think tonight's vote is not only smart logistically for all the reasons that have been discussed before me, but I think it's also sends a really clear message that we support our police department And moving forward, we're going to give them the tools and the facilities that they need. And lastly, it's only going to help with the recruitment because folks want to go to work for organizations where they are equipped to do the job they need to do. And so it's for all the reasons you talked about, all of you around the table. But lastly, it's just very supportive move for our police department. I wanted to point that out, Your Honor.
Thank you, Counselor. Did you want to speak?
Yes, Your Honor. I would just like to say that I'm recusing myself from discussion on this topic.
Thank you, Counselor. All right, any other comment, discussion?
I just want to echo what Councilor Keach said. I don't think there's anything is more supportive of the police department for us is to enable them to get a national accreditation through CALIA. I think that sends a message of gravitas throughout the industry, and I think improved facilities is a great part of that. So I too will be supporting this measure.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other comment, discussion?
I just want, Your Honor, sorry. I just want to say that what Kitch said earlier about defending the police or whatever, this is not about that aspect. This is about the safety of a community and what can we do to make this community safe and what can we do to provide the support our police need. And the other aspect of it was really what was happening throughout our country and what people were doing. So this is two different topics. I just want to highlight that.
I see them as one as the thing.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, Counselor. Any other comment? I know. Well, the mayor has an option to pick a comment too. Thank you. Let me just say that I will also be voting in favor of this motion. I think it's important to reiterate what the city manager said, which is that this is the beginning of a process. I think about when I was a new city councilor, wet behind my ears, and we were talking about a new community center on the Heights. We started with a very big plan, and we ended up with a smaller plan that was reasonable. And this is the nature of these major long-term construction plans or development plans that the city embarks upon, is that there is a lot of public discussion, there is a lot of public input, there is a lot of decision-making, and sometimes we sharpen our pencil. And so, this is really the first step, but I think a very important step, a critical step in moving forward and providing an adequate space for our police department. As I said to the chief in my question, I too now am staying up at night worrying about the inadequacies in our current station and when that might expose us, to a situation that I don't think any of us want to have. So again, I will be voting in favor of this motion. Thank you. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Yes.
Roll call.
Counselor Keach.
Yes.
Counselor Kretovic.
Yes.
Counselor McLaughlin.
Yes.
Counselor McNamara.
Yes.
Counselor Schlosser.
Yes.
Counselor Sekou.
Yes.
Counselor Todd.
Yes.
Mayor Champlin.
Yes.
Counselor Fennessy.
Yes.
Counselor Foote.
Yes.
Counselor Grady Sexton.
Yes.
It's unanimous. One recusal. Motion passes.
Thank you very much. Thank you for an excellent discussion on that. We now are going to move to items that have been pulled from the consent calendar. First one is item 18. Madam City Clerk?
You'll need a motion to consider items.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. I have a motion to consider items removed from the consent
So
calendar.
moved.
Second.
All right. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no? Ayes have it. Thank you very much. Thank you for the reminder. All right. Item 18.
It's a report from the Golf Course Director of Operations requesting authorization to collect resident information for the Beaver Meadow Golf Course, and this was pulled from the consent agenda by Councilor Brown.
Thank you. Councilor Brown.
Yes, thank you. I just, when reading the report, felt that the report went into more detail than was necessary. The report recommends City Council authorize Beaver Meadow Golf Course to collect resident information from season pass holders and residents that want to participate in the Resident Advanced Tee Time program. However, when I read the committee minutes, it stated the motion was to start collecting collecting resident data in order to incentivize resident play. And in fact, the title of this report is Request Authorization to Collect Resident Information. And I think I'd just like to simplify, make a motion to simplify this to just authorize Beaver Meadow Golf Course to collect resident information, period.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Fennessy.
Thank you. So I was at that meeting, and when we had the discussion about collecting resident information, the conversation sort of went in a slightly different direction because the pro started talking about things that could be done with that sort of information. And one of the things that we talked about was using that information, if residents were willing to opt in, to give them the opportunity to get tee times in advance. And part of the reason why he thought that would be a good both marketing and incentive is that we've seen that play, at least over the last few years, has been very substantial, and so there's become more and more of a priority of actually getting tee times. It's not so much about the rate, but it's getting tee times. So one of the things we talked about is, if we did this, is there a way that we can provide benefits to city taxpayers so that they get something else out of the golf course? And so the discussion did take place. I don't know if, I guess it wasn't reflected in the minutes, but it was certainly part of the discussion when we were talking about the benefits to the golf course of obtaining this information, provided obviously that residents wanted to opt in.
Thank you. Counselor Brown.
Thank you. Follow up. So I think that's great because I think when we have data, then we have more information, and then we can look at different ways to incentivize, to make more money. We've heard about how a member rate can be used as a perks package for recruitment and retention. So I think that's great that you're already looking forward to what to do with the data. I don't think we have to go that far into the weeds. I think we can just make a recommendation to begin collecting that resident information.
Counselor Fennessy.
Respectfully, I think it would be a great idea to give a benefit to the taxpayers of the city. And as you know, one of the items that came forward last year was a different rate. It didn't pass. As you know, I was one of the people who supported having a different rate for city taxpayers. Obviously, that didn't go forward. I think this is a great, if we can't give a better rate, let's give, residents the opportunity to get a tee time before others outside the community. I think that actually is a good benefit that we should give, and so I will be supporting the report as is.
Thank you. Counselor Brown.
Thank you. I think we're on the same page, actually. We're talking about the importance of collecting the data. So I am just stating the report should be simplified to collect the data and then allow, because there may be many other benefits that we discover when we have that data. But it shouldn't just be opt-in for, for your data. We should collect it across the board. Thank you.
Counselor Fennessy.
I guess just to clarify, I think we're going to collect the data anyways. The idea is that if people are interested, they would have the opportunity to get tee times. And so by rejecting this, we're basically, we're not conditioning people to give us information so that they can get a tee time. I don't believe that's the way it was intended. The idea is we're going to collect this information. If they're willing to give us the additional personal information through which we can actually email them out the opportunity to sign up for these tee times, they will have that opportunity.
Counselor, you have a question?
Yes, I'm confused. I'm sorry, I'm confused because the way it's written, it does seem as though we're only collecting that resident information from residents that want to participate in the advanced tee time. So somebody who doesn't want to participate in the advanced tee time would not provide their resident information. I think we should just collect resident information. The way it's written, it reads as though only those who participate in advanced tee time would provide their resident information.
Councilor Fennessy.
I don't believe that was the intent. It says the committee believes it is in the best interest to collect this information moving forward. Stop. Collect the information. And then the last two sentences are explaining that we could create a benefit through this information if people are willing to opt in to do so. And so I think that was the idea behind it.
Councilor Keach.
Thank you, Your Honor. Could I just point out, this is a report. We accept it, we don't. When the time comes, we're going to vote on the measure and the exact language.
Is that a motion?
Motion to accept the report. Thank you.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion?
I'm sorry,
Councilor Keach made a motion to accept the report as presented, and it was seconded by Councilor Kretovic. We now have a motion on the table. Councilor Schlosser.
I'm just not, I'm new here, so I'll ask the question. So when we accept a report of a committee, does that authorize the committee to do what they're recommending? Or do they, if they want to do something, do they come back and ask us again? I'm just not clear on what accepting a report means. So I would appreciate some clarification.
Yeah. It means that we're accepting their recommendation. If there was a subsequent action that needed to be taken, you know, it would be brought before the body.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Your Honor, just.
Councilor Kretovic and then Councilor Brown.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would just like to add an asterisk to that.
Sure.
Only in that City Council has previously authorized our city manager to work with our Golf Pro when there is availability to do dynamic pricing, and that was another part of the discussion at the committee, was that this report allowing in this fashion allows the city manager to direct the Golf Pro in that direction.
Thank you for the asterisk.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Brown.
I just, you know, as Councilor Fennessy had said, there was a full stop. There isn't. You know, it's one line under the recommendation of the report that says to collect resident information from season pass holders and residents that want to participate in resident advanced tea time program. If we want to add a period, to collect resident information, period. And then there can be, you know, more, you know, like have that full stop. And then I would be okay. I think, yes, let's collect the resident information and then we can use that data. I have an amendment that we add a period.
You're making an amendment that we add a period.
Add a period to collect resident information,
Moving to
period.
amend. Is there a second?
I second that.
Councilor Sekou seconds. Any discussion of the motion to add a period? Councilor Schlosser.
So then you have to figure out what to do with the rest of the sentence.
Yeah, that's what.
That's exactly what I wanted to say.
Doctor and English teacher.
A point well taken, Councilor. Councilor Kretovic.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm not going to support that amendment to the motion. And it really generates from the fact that I think there is some confusion around a resident season pass holder and a resident golfer. A resident season pass holder is going to get advanced tee time anyway, just as a season pass holder. But a resident player is not a season pass holder, and they can opt in to get advanced tee times that is outside of what a season pass holder would have. And I think that that's where perhaps the confusion is coming into play.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Keach.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm going to vote against this amendment and just point out that I find it very ironic that minutes ago I was advised by Councilor Brown not to get into the weeds, and here we are talking about a period.
Mayor Pro Tem, I'm sorry, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just want to second what Jim said, because we are not here to look at the English itself, but I think if we all agreed, and the only reason I said to put a period there is going to what Councilor Fennessy said. During their discussion, they said they are going to collect data, period. So I think that makes sense. If we are going to collect data on everybody, then it makes sense to say either or before we continue the sentence or put a period there. So it's not about the whole sentence. It's just how can we make it that everybody the data is collected on everybody. If that makes sense.
Yes.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other discussion before we move it? Okay.
I'm sorry.
Counselor?
Yes, I'd just like to say period and then delete the rest of the sentence. Just collect resident information, period.
All right, which was your original proposal, I think. Okay. Does everybody understand the motion? Which is to delete, put the period after
Resident information.
resident information and delete the rest of the sentence, the rest of the report, actually. This is the proposed amendment to modify the committee report.
Move to vote.
I'm about to. Thank you, Counselor.
You're welcome.
All those in favor of the amendment as proposed, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No?
No.
No, the noes have it. I'll now put through a vote the original committee report. All those in favor of the original committee report as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Ayes have it. The committee report is adopted. Thank you. Madam City Clerk, item number 21.
This is Mayor Champlin's proposed appointments to the Economic Development Advisory Committee, and this was pulled from the consent agenda by Councilor Brown.
Councilor Brown, speak to your...
Thank you. There were some fantastic appointments, and I just noted that 2 did not meet the 15-day requirement per our council rule number 18. So I make a motion that the 2 that were received on the 29th, which was not within the 15-day requirement, be held until next month.
Councilor Keach.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would like to move to suspend the rules and accept the nominations as proposed tonight.
Second.
All right. Moved and seconded. You want to speak to your motion, Councilor?
Well, I just think it's a technicality. I mean, and I'm not really sure why it's being hung up. If there's specific objections that are substantial, I'd be glad to listen to them tonight, but I think everyone's had ample time to review who's been nominated. I think the names are pretty widely known. It just seems like unnecessary delay of this committee, that committee, and the good work they're going to be doing shortly.
Thank you, Councilor. Any further discussion? Councilor, Mayor Pro Tem Sikri.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just want to say that as a body here, it's important that we remember all the time what rules we need to follow, because if we all the time, because of the interest of certain body or certain things, we say, okay, we are going to skip that rule to approve something, then we have to be consistent, because we are watched day and night to make sure that a rule applies to everybody. And if tomorrow something comes on the table, we are all individually accountable of what's happening. But if there is something written, we have to be consistent in following the rule. If that's the case, that's my comments.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Councilor Keach.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'll just point out that in my past 16 years, there's rarely a meeting that goes by where meetings are not, the rules are not suspended for one reason or another. It's not to say that they have to be, probably you won't agree with the suspending the rules, but there is that mechanism available to us to suspend the rules if we think it's expedient and appropriate. And I would say in this case, expedient and appropriate.
Follow up.
Councilor Sekou.
I support that. I'm just reminding ourselves because it's important. If we are going to be consistent, then it makes sense. But if you are not going to be consistent, it doesn't make sense. And thank you for sharing your experience, because as Jim said, we are new to this, but we want to make sure we take our time to read, we take our time to understand what's going on. So it's important that as a body, we follow the rule consistently, not just our personal interest. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Councilor Brown.
Yes, and you are correct, and this is only my 3rd year here, that we did frequently suspend the rules, but this is a new council, and this is a new mayor that is
heading this. And of all the appointments they are, I don't see that there's anything immediately pressing that we need to suspend the rules. And one of the two did not include a resume when everyone else had. So this would give that individual an opportunity to supply a resume because this is a public document and everyone is able to see the breadth of experience of the people on this very important committee.
Thank you, Counselor. Are we ready for a vote? Counselor Kretovic.
Yes, I'd like to recuse myself from the vote for multiple professional conflicts of interest.
Thank you, Counselor.
Thank you.
Are we ready for the vote to suspend the rules?
Okay, that's the
Right.
vote.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no?
No.
All right. The rules are suspended by the necessary two-thirds vote. Counselor Fennessy.
Motion to approve.
Second?
Motion is made to approve and seconded. Any further discussion?
Yes, Your Honor. I know, based on many of our conversation, you always emphasize on having a resume sent to you, and the previous mayor the same thing. And here we know that there are certain people, individuals that didn't submit the resume, and we are going still forward with it. So just that this is on record, it's not a rule, it's a preference. Am I correct?
No, it's a rule.
So every single candidate who want to go be a committee member has to submit the resume for our review.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood your question. I thought you were asking about the vote. No, it's preference that we have a resume.
Okay.
In some cases, people have their resumes available professionally online on their business website.
For me, it's just to make it clear, because I know many oftentimes you and I, before even I was elected, you will say to me, ask them to send the resume. And going forward, we have plenty of opportunity to approve other people, but just so that it's on record, if you don't have your resume, you still are eligible to be approved. We are not going to insist on sending people's resume.
We
Am I
prefer to
correct?
have the resume when we can.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
You're,
Ready for the vote? Counselor Brown.
Clarification. Your Honor, you just stated that we're able to look at professional resumes online. I believe the individual that did not supply their resume did not state their business or provide a business email address for us to enable us to see that resume.
Thank you, Counselor. Are we ready for the vote? All those in favor of the motion as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No?
No.
Ayes have it. The motion is adopted. Comments by the City Council. Councilor Kretovic.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have kind of an odd one. This is one I've been working on for more than a year and a half. There are multiple residents that live in and around Swenson Granite, and ever since they changed their operations to blasting into the north face of the quarry there, it has impacted a lot of the homes with shaking, noise. It goes forward, it goes backward, it goes east, it goes west. For the past year and a half, working with Swenson Granite and putting out notifications on Facebook and helping to develop that list to notify people, it's a great way for people to know. It's not enough for those people that are dealing with pets in their home. There is, the closer you are, obviously the greater the impact, especially south of Granite State, because they're in the north face. I don't know all the engineering around it. It actually impacts the area around Fosterville much bigger. So we did put out a request, we through the City Council email address, put out a request to Swenson Granite, and they've agreed to start a listserv for people that would like to be on text messaging in advance of that blasting. I would caution, when you email a city councilor, it is part of the public record. And that means you're putting your private cell phone part of the public record. Again, this is a year and a half that I've been working with Swenson Granite. I'd like to provide my personal email address. I will be able to keep private your information and send it to Swenson Granite, who will then control that information. And again, it's very simply jennifer.kretovic@gmail.com if you would like to get on that list to know when advanced blastings are coming. Thanks.
Thank you, Counselor. Councilor McLaughlin. Never mind,
Okay,
it's a long
that's all right.
night.
Long night. This Thursday at 7 p.m., the Concord Historical Society has their second Thursday of the Month series. This month's presentation is Concord. History, a story of how we got there. It's at the Kimball Jenkins Estate Carriage House, and it's at 7 p.m.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Brown.
Yes, thank you. I just have three things. One is there's a pilot community garden happening on 58 Warren Street. This is going to be, it's a few beds, predominantly for the folks in the Firehouse Block elderly group. But if anyone would like to donate, because it will be free for them, no cost to the city, the property owner is providing the water for them, that you can go to capbm.org. And at the donate button, scroll down to community gardens. We're hoping to kick that off in May. The second thing, I just want to acknowledge Councilor Schlosser and Kara Meeker of the school board for their excellent community listening session that they had last week. I was inspired, and I had many of my constituents say, hey, why aren't you doing that? So I just want to let folks know that I am doing that. It's going to be a joint City Council School Board listening session with myself and Liz Boucher at the Women's Club, 44 Pleasant Street, tomorrow night from 7 to 8:30. So please come, bring your questions. We'll field them as best we can and hear your concerns, school board and City Council. And lastly, I'd like to point out that the Garrison Park Pool meeting was excellent. It was well attended. We heard from a lot of residents that resoundingly supported a pool. And we heard how important it is for our perks package, for recruitment and retention. We want to have pools for the 74% that do not live in Concord. However, we have had a hard time getting lifeguards. The lifeguard employment offer is online. We're offering $16 an hour. I would encourage folks to, anyone you know, become a lifeguard. And I recently spoke with the executive director for the YMCA because at that Garrison Park Pool meeting, we heard from a mother who had signed her son up to become a lifeguard, but he didn't meet the physical challenges, and he was sent home. So you're only reimbursed if you pass the course. So I talked with the YMCA executive director, and he agreed to provide any lifeguards, folks who have agreed to be lifeguards for Concord, the opportunity to have a free gym membership until the pools are open, so that they can get in shape, because being a lifeguard is such a physically demanding job, and we want our lifeguards to be ready from day one. So I understand that there was some concern about this, a possible partnership and offering this to this personal development opportunity for folks who are working for or looking to work for Concord. I believe that it would require a vote of City Council. So I would like to make a motion, if this is appropriate.
What's the nature of the motion?
The nature of the motion would be to, I guess, whatever motion we have to make to allow those folks who sign on to be lifeguards to attend the YMCA, to receive a membership at the YMCA for the purpose of getting in shape to be lifeguards, which will end when our pools open.
Councilor, may I suggest that you make a motion to refer it to RPAC for action on their recommendation in May?
Your Honor, respectfully, I would love to have the motion tonight, because it would give people who are interested in becoming lifeguards that much more time. Our pools open mid-June, so they would have 2.5 months to get in shape. And you know, I would, you know, there's one member of RPAC here. But that is the urgency, is that, it does take time. You have to tread water, and the YMCA has a pool. So, and we are having trouble attracting lifeguards. So this could be a way for people to get in shape so that they do pass the test. Because when you sign up to be a lifeguard, you don't have to be certified. But we want to make sure that they're able to be certified, that they're ready when they take that test.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Kritovic?
Thanks, Your Honor. I'm not sure I'm going to phrase this very well. I'm going to do the very best that I can. I believe the YMCA and other programs also have issues with hiring lifeguards, and we are essentially letting them poach those whom we send to them. Not that they're going to do that, but it's also not the only pool in town that is indoor, and I'm not sure that we want to be showing favoritism when there hasn't been a vetting process that goes through an actual board that looks at the recreation portions of this. This is not something I can support at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. You want to make a motion to pass this tonight?
Yes,
as
I
you
would.
articulated it? Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Councilor Schlosser seconds it. All right. Further discussion?
So I have a question though. Do we have to make a motion for this specific that we don't even know if there is candidate out there that might be going, or it's just a suggestion, and then once we know that we have candidate interested to go, to make a motion?
My answer would be that that's why I would.
I don't know
love to
the
send
rules
it-
here,
yeah,
because.
That's why I would love to send it to RPAC, which is
I think-
assigned to oversee these things, determine whether this is really a.
I think it makes sense because it's safety related. I think it makes sense to put people in shape, but I don't know the rule. How can we proceed now to make a motion for that specific? But I do support the idea.
Thank you, Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Your
Councilor
Honor. This is completely out of order. I mean, if we run the city by motions at the end of every meeting, it is complete chaos. There's a process in place. Virtually everything goes to a committee for recommendation, vetting, feedback from the community, a whole host of reasons. And this might be the greatest idea in the world, don't get me wrong, but there's a process that really needs to go through, and this isn't it. So I'll be opposing any kind of motion if, in fact, it comes forward.
Councilor Siku.
I just have some announcement that I want to make when it's time.
Oh, okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Well,
I have been fasting.
first we have to.
Yeah, I have been fasting all day, so I just.
First, we have to pass through this veil of tears. Councilor
Back to
Fennessy.
point of order, would we need to suspend the rules to take this item up?
That'd be awful.
That is a good question.
Because we just
discussed that.
Yeah,
just
yeah,
discussed
indeed.
it,
Thank you. Could I ask?
Got a lawyer for a reason.
As usual, an excellent question, Councilor Fennessy.
It's happened before?
Not usually during the comment
Yeah,
section.
Councilor Todd.
While you're waiting for a response from our solicitor, I just wanted to note that I believe Councilor Brown in her remarks on this item stated that she understood that there were some concerns about this going forward. So I haven't heard any of the concerns yet. So I'm kind of thinking about what councilors have said. I don't know the city's position. I don't know what the potential issues are. Is there a potential? I don't. There's a lot of unanswered questions. So it makes it difficult without the information, I think, to move forward tonight. Thank you.
Councilor Brown.
I just would like to say that I didn't know that we needed a motion. This was something that I thought this would be an opportunity for those who want to become lifeguards to get in shape. In order to become lifeguards, it was when I had a conversation with David Gill today, and he wasn't sure if it was considered a gift. So then I spoke with HR, Jennifer Johnson, who reached out to legal and was looking at, if this is personal development, then it's not an issue. So I just thought it was something that we could offer. I had no idea that it would require a motion at all.
Okay.
Councilor Schlosser.
I seconded it so that we could discuss it, but I think we need more information. I mean, there's a lot of questions about exactly how it would work and the impact and stuff like that. So I think it's a little more complicated than just.
Are you withdrawing your second, Counselor?
Oh, I'm not withdrawing my, but I just want to comment that I may end up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Your Honor, I think the solicitor was trying to
Yes,
come forward.
yes. Madam Solicitor, please.
I'm trying to read the rules as quickly as I can because I don't know this one by heart. But normally if we take up something by suspense, you do suspend the rules, so I would think this is analogous to that.
So this would require a 2/3 suspense of the rules?
Yes, yes.
All right. All right.
But,
You're on.
does it require a motion from the stage we are at now, like?
Yes, we would. So we do have a gift policy in the city, and we're very careful about when we accept gifts, especially with, you know, an entity in Concord that is a business here. So typically, gifts are not allowed to be received. Here, you're talking about lifeguards who, you know, are just starting their employment, but they will be public servants at some point while they're getting this. I think it's a free membership, so they can practice swimming. So in order to avoid any issues with the gift policy, we would want you to authorize those employees to be able to receive that type of benefit. So we do think it makes sense that it be approved by council.
Thank you.
Okay, so we need a motion to suspend the rules.
You're so moved.
So moved. Second. All right, not hearing a second. The rules are not suspended. The item is closed. Thank you. Councilor Sekou, sorry, Mayor Pro Tem Sekou, you had.
Skip.
You. Well, I'm sorry, what did I say?
I don't know.
I just want to say that,
Huh?
You
Oh, Amanda, I'm sorry, Amanda. I did not see your hand up. I apologize.
It was not up, but I'd love to.
No, she was where you left.
We're coming this way.
Yes.
Comments.
Okay, I'm sorry. So who's next?
I am next.
I'm happy to say something.
All right.
if you'd like me to.
96.
I'm just kidding. Thank you, Your Honor.
Sorry.
I was just wondering if Councilor Brown wants to now ask to have her idea referred to RPAC as we previously discussed.
Sure.
I'd be
You know
happy to.
what? Yeah, thank you.
Of course.
that's what I wanted to say, because it's not that it's not like we refuse, because I think it's a great opportunity for our young folks to go get the skill they need to be in shape to help our city, safety related. I just didn't understand what is the process and the rules, so I would love to see this at some point coming back here, or at least going to the committee. Oh.
Mr. City Manager.
So, thinking out loud, which is dangerous, on this, to accomplish what Councilor Brown's doing, you want to do it in a timely fashion. Could somebody and not that you speak for the YMCA, could somebody who has signed up at Park and Rec to become a lifeguard, could they then go down to the YMCA and say, hey, I just signed up at Park and Rec to be a lifeguard? And then the YMCA could call a designated person, David, use a name, and say, hey, did Councilor, did so-and-so sign up for it? Yes, they did. Okay, and then they just grant them 2.5 months. The city's out of it.
Yes.
We don't have to be involved.
Correct.
Right? They're not an employee of the city yet. All they can do, they can just simply
Correct.
do their program, and all we're saying is verifying to the YMCA person, yes, that person has signed up for. We're not going to say that they're lifeguard. We're not going to say they're going to be a lifeguard. All we can say is just they've signed up because they're interested in being a lifeguard.
That is correct.
They go off and do their thing. They come back. Hopefully they're ready, or they're not ready. They find out they're not.
Yep.
They sink like a stone, and they're not.
Yeah.
They don't look good in red. Whatever it's going to be, right?
That is correct, Mr. City Manager, and that is all. They would have to just get some kind of verify that they.
So we're not
No,
involved. Other than
it
saying-
cost us nothing. It cost us nothing, and the membership ends when the pool's open.
This way, it's all on the YMCA. They want to give something, let them give something.
So it's their program.
No harm done.
All right. Councilor Kretovic, Councilor McNamara, then Councilor Keach, then Mayor Pro
Took
Tem.
it away from me long time ago. Just kidding.
Thank you, Your Honor. I think that at the conversation for Garrison Pool, the concern was that the person was unable to swim. Not that they were physically unable to do the role and needed more training. They were not able to swim. I can't think of a single resident in this city that wants to go to a pool with a lifeguard that doesn't know how to swim. I would recommend, if we want to have somebody applying for a lifeguard position, ask for verification you can swim, whether it's through the YMCA, whether it's through one of the private pools that are in this area that's an indoor pool, that somebody can take a simple test at Concord High that says they know how to swim. And then we can have a further conversation about where they might get additional training to be strong enough to be a lifeguard in our community.
Thank you, Councilor McNamara.
Two things. I would really like to hear from the executive director of the YMCA on what he's saying about this. And secondly, you can't get in the pool at the Concord YMCA if you can't swim. You have to have a swim test. So the YMCA is going to make you do a swim test to allow you into their pool first and foremost. So that right there.
Like I said, I don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Well, Councilor.
Thank you, Your Honor. Maybe I can move this along, and a friendly suggestion, Councilor Brown, instead of RPAC, in the interest of moving this as quickly as possible, it can be referred to administration to review the idea. Is it a good idea? Is it a bad idea? And vet it. I mean, that will move a little more quickly. That is another option, I believe.
I just gave my.
Yeah.
I just
Your
gave,
Honor.
yeah,
Your
I mean,
Honor.
that's
Your Honor.
I mean, maybe you'd have
May I
more or
read
not.
what he wrote?
Maybe you don't want. I don't want more.
Hang on. I have multiple people. Councilor Schlosser, Councilor Fennessy, Councilor Brown. Councilor Schlosser.
I was going to make councilor comments when they are appropriate.
Oh, all right,
I'd rather-
okay. Well, we still have to get through Councilor Brown's councilor
So I
comments.
would defer to Councilor.
All right, Councilor Fennessy, were you going to comment on this item?
I was just going to say, the concept, I think, is great if the Y wants to offer it. I'm not sure that we as a council need to take any action if the Y wants to do this. And so my suggestion would be, because these are individuals who are not city employees, if the Y wants to offer benefits to members of this community, and we might benefit from them improving their swimming so that they're a better candidate, sounds great. But I think we need to be very clear that we, the city council, the city has nothing to do with it. If the Y wants to offer this benefit to individuals who live in the community, that's for them to decide.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Brown.
Thank you. I just want to clarify that it was a benefit specifically to those folks that want to be City of Concord lifeguards, not just other lifeguards. And I would just read this email that he sent me this evening after multiple conversations. This is Alex Turek, the Executive Director of the Concord YMCA. He says, "Hi, Stacey. We are happy to extend a membership for individuals seeking to become lifeguards with the City of Concord. They would need to provide proof that they are enrolled in your program, and we would offer them a membership upon receipt of that proof, which would terminate when the pools open for the city. Happy to provide any other information that you need. Thanks."
Councilor, is that not what the city manager suggested?
Yes, but it was different from what Councilor Fennessy said, in that someone would provide proof that they enrolled through the City of Concord.
I think that the city manager suggested that somebody could call Mr. Gill, and he would say.
Try to keep it. These are
We need
generally
to-
kids we're talking about, so try to keep it simple.
No. Councilor Todd, do you want to dive into this?
Good analogy.
Jesus.
Yes, it's going to definitely be a slow swim lane. I think the.
Make sure you're not in the shallow end of the pool.
Yeah, I usually am. I think that what the city manager said seems to line up with what you just read, Councilor Brown. I'm trying to figure out how should the city even be involved in this. It doesn't sound like we are at all. It sounds to me like if it should be on the Y to figure out who is, I could come in and say, I'm going to be a lifeguard, give me my free membership, and just look at me. No, there's no way I'm going to be the lifeguard, right? But I think that that's up to them. They're going to have to figure out whoever they want to contact, and then if the city doesn't have anything involved in it, then we don't need to make a motion or a referral or anything else. It's a Y, it's a Concord Y program, I think, right?
I thought we had to. I thought we had
Yeah,
to.
I don't,
because these
it doesn't
funds
sound
were
like it
built.
based on what you,
Right.
what you read there, actually, so, yeah, thank you.
Okay. So it sounds like if the Y wants to offer that, they can reach out to the administration. Administration can figure out how to acknowledge that someone
Okay,
has.
thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Now, personal comments again. Councilor Fessy.
Thank you. Just a quick one. I just wanted to recognize the passing of Representative Art Ellison. The memorial service, I think, was yesterday. Unfortunately, I couldn't make it, so I just want to say a couple words. I first met Art on the basketball court at the Y, and he was such a integral figure in me meeting a number of people when I first moved back here over a decade ago. Art, all he cared about, the reason why he ran for the State House was to help kids, and it was sad to see him go. I know everybody probably saw he had sort of his last words in the paper, but he's someone who always was looking out for the best interests of kids, and so just wanted to recognize his passing.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Schlosser.
Be happy to. I just want to acknowledge Councilor Brown's gracious comments about the meeting I had on Tuesday, and I wanted to share it with the council. So we had a resident meeting at the West Street Ward House, co-hosted by a colleague from the school board, Kara Meeker, who lives in the Ward 7, and we had more than 50 residents there. And with a school board member there, you can imagine that this middle school location was a hot topic. But other topics were homelessness, safety, and the all too present property tax issues. So we heard from residents. We also heard from residents an appreciation of what's going on in the city, some of the developments that the city has done. So, and I think the residents did appreciate the opportunity just to speak and be heard. So I just wanted to share that. It was really gratifying to hear them come out, to see them come out, and to see their comments. Some of them were tough comments, or very, some of it was some anger about what's going on, but it was really good to hear all that. So I just want to share that with the council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Mayor Pro Tem Sick.
Thank you. It's about time. Thank you, Your Honor. But I wanted to say thank you, Jim, and for setting the bar high, because I think as elected official, it's important that we are out there to engage our communities. And I had one of a resident from Ward 8 to reach out and suggest that we organize the same things that you did. So kudos to you and Kara for doing this amazing work. I just want to take this opportunity to express our gratitude to all the councilors that attended the iftar dinner, Ramadan dinner, and to the Honorable Mayor for attending as well. We were honored and delighted by your presence and the presence of every community member and community leader out there that really honored our invitation. So thank you. Ramadan is coming to an end, and we are hoping that Wednesday will be the celebration of Eid. And if the city or anybody, you have a Muslim member of your cabinet or what, your staff, please do be flexible for them to attend the Eid prayers, because it's very important for them. And usually Eid prayers is between 7:30 and 8:30 period time. So it's really an hour. And then of course the celebration goes for 3 days. But living here, it's going to be for 1 day based on the demands. So Eid al-Fitr will be celebrated on Wednesday, April 10th. That's a projection. That's not a definite. We are going to know by tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Floyd.
Yes, thank you. This past weekend, I went and joined the Kiwanis Club, or Kiwanis International, who celebrated their 100th anniversary in the city, and it's a great organization. And as their motto is, one child at a time to improve their lives. So it was a nice event to attend. And then secondly, I was on the road late Wednesday night. Just want to give kudos to the the General Services Department. The roads in Concord, when I came from an adjacent community, were in much better condition. So thank you.
I second that. I was on the road too.
Thank you, Counselor. All right, we've gone around the table. I would just like to make a few remarks. The first is, I would just like to acknowledge that we have members of the General Services Department's Propel program who are in the audience tonight. The Propel program is, I believe, a 7-week program. I'm sorry, nine monthly half-day sessions that started in September. And they have been recruited from all across General Services. I cannot tell you, this is a development program that General Services runs. If you want to know a lot more detail about it, I highly recommend you talk to Mr. Chesley. I congratulate General Services for providing this opportunity to their employees, and I would ask you all to stand for a moment and accept our acknowledgement.
Thanks for staying late.
And thank you, yes, as Councilor Fennessy notes, thank you for staying here for the entire evening. I hope that you, none of you have.
Time.
Yeah, calm time. Don't check in early. I would also like to extend my thanks to Mayor Pro Tem Sekou for the invitation to iftar at the mosque. It was a great evening, a wonderful prelude to my Easter celebration. So I deeply appreciate that. I also want to acknowledge the passing of Representative Ellison. Representative Ellison and I got to know each other because I was running for office. He was always very supportive, very warm, generous individual whose background was in education, and that was his focus in the legislature. I had the opportunity to visit him a couple of times at the Concord Hospice House, and his spirit as he faced the end of his road was inspirational. I too, unfortunately, missed his memorial service. But the time I spent with him at the hospice house and the time I spent with his family were enriching to me to see with what grace an individual who had contributed to this community and to this state significantly could leave this vale of tears and go on to the next phase and stage, wherever that is. I also finally want to extend my thanks to Building Community in New Hampshire, which held on Palm Sunday, ironically or interestingly, an opportunity for me and Councilor Mayor Pro Tem Sekou and representatives of the school board to meet with members of the New American community at the community center. It was a great opportunity. We had small circles of groups from different nationalities originally to engage in one-on-one conversation, in some cases with translators, and it was one of the most enriching opportunities I've had to talk to some of the newer members of the Concord community. So thank you to Building Community in New Hampshire for that opportunity. With that said, any comments by the city manager?
Just to, Your Honor, the one thing is true, and it's been true in the years that I've been with Concord General Services Department, when you, for all the people who come into Concord each and every day and leave, they know as long if they can get to the city lines, they're going to be okay. And they know the difference when they get whether they're coming in from Hopkinton or Canterbury or they know when they're in Concord and they know when they've left their community. It's marked difference, yeah. And that's consistent. And hopefully we're out of winter, but they did a great job again this year. The other thing is you have and you accepted it, the hazard mitigation plan of 2024. It is chock full of information. Tremendous amount of work went into that. It's an update since 2017. It got delayed because of COVID. If you get a chance, just peruse it. I know you have. Look through it somewhat, but really there's so much good information in there that I think you'll find it a real value. And it shows you how the departments, police, fire, general services, all the departments are really ready to serve in case a disaster was to occur. So, and obviously if you do this, then you're eligible for grant funding and for aid in case there is a disaster. So it was absolutely necessary. And they did, again, John Chisholm, the fire chief, did a fabulous job with this. So with that, those are my comments.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager.
Can I just comment? I think Chief Chisholm was here earlier, and I wanted to acknowledge that while he was here, but I thought that report was very impressive. I was very impressed with that. So I think we owe him and that whole team. That sounds like it was a whole cadre of teams of people working on that. But
For a very
very
long time.
impressive work. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Your Honor, I just want to second what you said about BCNH. That was a great opportunity to learn and to listen to the community's needs. I too enjoyed it very much.
Thank you, thank you.
I'll entertain a
Move to
motion
adjourn.
to adjourn.
Second.
Counselor Keach, move seconded. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Is anybody opposed? All right.